I'm 27 years old. I've no money and no prospects. I'm already a burden to my parents. And I'm frightened.
Hello, what's up everyone? How are you guys? I don't think it's that hard to change your YouTube name. I think it's just in settings. Whoa, I got a little light beam on my forehead here. I think that's it. I think we're good. What's up? What's up? What's up? How's it going, everyone? Welcome to another read of Pride and Prejudice. 22 to 25. I'm excited. Okay, so I was thinking of something on my walk this morning with Wes. I took a real long hike with Wes. He's all tired. He's on the bed. Let's talk about Mr. and Mrs. Bennet for a second. Who is worse, Mr. or Mrs. Bennet? Really interesting. I forgot which, did it come out in the yesterday or the day before or today? Well, let me check. I think it was this morning. The Bennets are terrible parents. We talked about that. I got a bunch of comments. I got a bunch of comments that were talking about how Mr. Bennet is worse than Mrs. Bennet. I want to talk about that for a second. Oh, hello, Wes. What's up, buddy? What? You want to play now? You were all tired on the bed. Come here. Wes doesn't know what he wants. I want to talk about Mr. and Mrs. Bennet because a lot of people were talking about how Mr. Bennet is actually worse than Mrs. Bennet. And you guys might know you guys all probably know the end of the story, so maybe that's true in the end of the story. I want to say, I was thinking about this a lot in my walk. I don't think that's the case that in my thought right now. And I want to talk about that because a lot of people were talking about Dr. Octavia. Otto Octavia, isn't that Spider-Man? Someone was mentioning the doc, who is apparently like the Regency era genius. So she knows a lot more than I do. But I want to say at this point in the story, I think Mrs. Bennet is going to be portrayed as worse than Mr. Bennet. The reason why I think Mr. Bennet is a better character and less annoying. I mean, I think everyone will probably say that Mrs. Bennet is more annoying than Mr. Bennet. But I think if we're talking about, sorry, I gotta take this thing off. If we're talking about who is a worse parent, is someone a worse parent who, I mean, it's like, I guess this is like neglect versus manipulation. They're both terrible. I don't think that we can necessarily compare and say who's worse because I think they're both not good. But at this point in the story, I would say that I would rather have Mr. Bennet as a parent than Mrs. Bennet because Mr. Bennet has kind of just checked out. He's not really parenting. He's not really helping his family that much. But at the same time, he's doing I think the parenting issue of trying to be friends with one of his daughters. Like he's preferring one of his daughters, wants to be friends with one of his daughters. Mrs. Bennet is trying to get them a good future, but she's doing it really manipulatively. I would rather have to deal with Mr. Bennet at the moment than Mrs. Bennet. Because Mrs. Bennet is like, if you don't marry Mr. Collins, I am going to never speak with you again. That is awful to say. That is like a terrible mom manipulative move. And I just hate that. I think that's awful. I would rather deal with like a parent who's like checked out than have to deal with someone who's manipulating me to not get what I want in my life. Like to me, what's worse in the end scheme of your life? Like if I follow with what my mom wants me to do, I'll be miserable the rest of my life. And I'll marry someone that I really don't like at all, and it won't be fun. And then if I marry, or if my dad's just not going to give me advice. So maybe I'll be mad at him at some point. But I just think at the moment, I think Mrs. Bennet is worse. But I think they're both annoying, and I think they're both terrible. They're not good parents at all. And I think the Mr. Bennett stuff is maybe a bit more under the radar. So like I think at this point in the novel, you're kind of supposed to hate Mrs. Bennett a bit more than Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bennett's at least has comedic moments. We laugh with Mr. Bennett and we laugh at Mrs. Bennett. And I just don't like the manipulation of Mrs. Bennett saying, if you don't marry Mr. Collins, who is atrocious, like a parent should be able to see Mr. Bennett or see Mr. Collins and be like, no, I don't care what estate that you're attached to. You're not going to like work on yourself before you marry my daughter. Like, that's not, I just don't, I mean, like, I understand, like, she has to marry her daughters off because she's nervous about their future, but that's not really the way to do it. And she seems like the kind of woman who's like, it's my way or the highway. And they're not following her way, so she just is, oh, my poor nerves, and she just goes crazy over that. Here you go, Wes, just relax on the bed. Now Wes is just chilling on the bed. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that. Responsibility ends with him. He's just given up. She sucks, but I don't think she can be managed, to be completely honest. I don't think Mrs. Bennett can be managed at all. I think Jane and Elizabeth ignore her, and I think her daughters ignore her, but she's still manipulative. And I think too, there's a point. I was thinking about this on my walk. This is the last thing I'll mention before we go on. I think there's an interesting point of who you view as worse if you are a male or a female. I was thinking, if you are a girl in the family, what would you rather have? What parent would you rather have? And if you're a guy in the family, what parent would you rather have? And I think, I don't know. I actually don't know. But anyway, those are my thoughts on that. Is there a point when parents get to be done parenting? Like, do they ever get to treat their kids as grown, equal adult equals? That's a great point, honestly. I think so. Because there's a point where, for my parents, my parental relationships, where it definitely shifted from them being like parents to being like more, like, I don't view my parents as friends, but like they kind of are. Like, I don't think it's like they're parenting versus not parenting. They're still like always looking out for you in the parent's mind. But there's definitely a point where I looked at them and like they're less of caretakers for me than anything else. Interesting, you guys have a lower opinion of Mr. Bennett. I have a lower opinion at the moment of Mrs. Bennett, a much lower opinion. Internal damage, hurting the family by neglect versus external damage, ruining their reputation with bad manners. Yeah, that's actually not a bad. That's not a bad. I think there's part of that that's attached to that, but I just still think, like, I've known people who have had mothers like Mrs. Bennett, and I know how damaging that is. Of, if you don't do this, I'm never gonna speak with you again. And like, that is just, I guess it's sometimes what you have experience for, or like, you know, I think they're just both terrible. I mean, we're comparing something that's like, they're both just not good parents. But again, I think at the moment, my reading of it is Mr. Bennett is a little more tolerable than Mrs. Bennett. Maybe because he's just more entertaining. But that's my thoughts on that. Yeah, Cool Dad is always more fun, but needs direction. At the same point, they are kind of adults. Or like, I don't know what adult would be in the Regency era. Like, I think he likes Jane and Elizabeth because they can kind of like be on level with him and on par with him. I struggle to see any moments where he shows care for the future of his daughters. No, I think that's wrong. He says, if you marry, he does this jokingly, but at the moment, everything that I was saying with Mrs. Bennett can be applied to him now because he's kind of being manipulative. He's like, you're in a quandary. If you marry Mr. Collins, your mother will never speak to you. If you do, I will never speak to you again. So he at least is looking to their future for that, but maybe he's looking to their future more as like I want to be friends with you, and I don't want you to be with Mr. Collins, because then that'd be a struggle. So I don't know. Yeah, Lana, I'm with you. They're always your parents, but the relationship shifts to like a friend parent rather than like a caretaker parent. But yeah, that's all I got. You guys ready to read? I just wanted to get that off my head because I was taking Wes for a hike, and I said, you know what? Time to think about Pride and Prejudice. Also, everyone liked the stream. 25 people here, 6 likes. Everyone's gotta like it. But yeah, I'm curious if my opinions will change as the novel goes on with them. If there's gonna be like a terrible moment with one of them, or I think we're about a third through the novel. Also, gonna put in another plug for the 1980 movie. Is it a movie? What the BBC one was 1995. Jennifer L was great in that. 1 second. What was I gonna check? Quick update on the poll. Okay, so right now I got a lot of votes. It's actually crazy. I thought I was going to get like 50 votes. I got 350 for which book I should read next. Jane Eyre is the clear winner. But I have to say, I'm tempted to keep Jane Eyre off a little bit longer. I did not expect Jane Eyre to be a runaway win. At the beginning of the poll, Moby Dick was the clear winner. And then Moby Dick is the least. No one wants to read Moby Dick. But I'm tempted to, I think this is going to kind of be the plan. Just so you guys know. I think after we do Pride and Prejudice, I think I want to read Wuthering Heights because the movie's coming out, and I feel like that'd be kind of fun to read that right before the movie comes out, because we'll probably be right on pace with it. I think the movie is supposed to come out middle of February. So I think Wuthering Heights is short too, so I feel like it'd take like a few weeks. I feel like I want to do Wuthering Heights next. Right after Wuthering Heights, I have to check this. 1 second. Let me double check this really quick. Audience. Okay. This is crazy, guys. The audience right now on this channel, it is 90% female or 88% female, 11% male. So I love that. I think that's great, but I feel like I want to try to draw somewhat of a male audience. Although I will say most of the book clubs that I've hosted have been mainly female. That's kind of in the percentage. So I don't think there's like a male book that you can read. I guess the Lord of the Rings channel is like the male equivalent of a book club. But I was like, maybe Moby Dick would bring in some guys where we can kind of balance out the book club. But I don't know. I think Wuthering Heights is short. I know, Michael, me and you. Yeah, definitely is the book choice, Pride and Prejudice. But at the same point, I think there's a few books that would attract a guy audience, but I think less. Like, I don't want to read a ton of Ernest Hemingway. I don't love Ernest Hemingway. We'll get to him eventually. I want to save him for like a few years down the line. But I'm there's like probably a few authors that guys do like, but a little bit different. So I feel like yeah, Wuthering Heights is a lot apparently. I feel like it's tough. But yeah, Trig, I'm with you. I don't think it's just not very long, so that's kind of why I want to do it. And Jane Eyre is a little bit longer. We're definitely going to read Paradise Lost. We're definitely going to get to that. So I'm tempted at the moment to do Wuthering Heights. And then I don't necessarily want to do Moby Dick because that got only 11% of the votes. But I still kind of feel like it'd be fun to do that. Maybe we'd attract a few more males in this audience, which isn't necessarily the case. But wait, Jane Eyre is as long as Anna Karenina? That is crazy. I did not know that. Anna Karenina is massive. Okay, that changes the plan a little bit. Jane Eyre, maybe Jane Eyre will be like our spring read. It's like Weber versus Sondheim or Verdi versus Wagner or Star Wars versus Star Trek. And Nemo is going, there's a clear winner in all of those. Yeah, I don't know anything about Wuthering Heights, but the movie's coming out, so I kind of want to do that. And then I'm tempted to do Moby Dick right after that. But Moby Dick, how long is Moby Dick? I think Moby Dick is a long one, right? Moby Dick novel length. 635 pages. Whew. Man. Maybe we haven't begun yet, Lime Mango. We're talking about next books. So I'm like, because Wuthering Heights is short, I'm like 95% sure we'll do Wuthering Heights next. And then after Wuthering Heights, I don't know. Maybe the Iliad or the Odyssey or something like that. Maybe we'll do epic poetry. We'll take a little epic poet break, and then maybe we'll do Jane Eyre right after that. Yeah, all the options after Wuthering Heights are long. It's true. We'll figure it out. Well, give me some more options. Maybe we'll throw in a different option. I do want to do Jane Eyre not quickly. Within the next 4-ish months, I would like to do Jane Eyre. So Jane Eyre will be either the next one after Wuthering Heights or the one after that. Iliad before the Odyssey. Now, I want to put off War and Peace a little bit longer. Last of the Mohegans, maybe. For some reason, those books don't appeal to me that much. But maybe, I don't know. Beowulf could do well. I want to do Beowulf on the main First Timers channel, though. It's the first long book you read for yourself. I love that. You have a coffee cup that says "Real Men Read Jane Austen." Honestly, valid. I don't even know who Stephen and Jack are. Is that Jane Eyre? So all that to say, we will figure out what we'll read next. I don't know at the moment. Ooh, Wuthering Heights and the Iliad are dead tied. Someone just voted for the Iliad. All right, guys. Anyway, we'll figure that out. So we'll probably do Wuthering Heights next. But give me some suggestions in comments or just like on the Discord of other books that we can read. So we'll get there when we get there. But anyway, let's begin our read. This is chapter 22 of Pride and Prejudice. The Bennets. The Bennets were engaged to dine with the Lucases. And again, during the chief of the day, was Miss Lucas so kind as to listen to Mr. Collins. So she just keeps listening to Mr. Collins. I think they get married. Because I think that's the introduction that we do on the screen, that she's afraid and she's frightened, so she marries Collins. Blah. Elizabeth took an opportunity of thanking her. "It keeps him in good humor," she said, "and I am more obliged to you than I can express." Charlotte assured her friend of her satisfaction in being useful, and that it amply repaid her for the little sacrifice of her time. This was very amiable, but Charlotte's kindness extended farther than Elizabeth had any conception of. Its object was nothing less than to secure her from any return of Mr. Collins's addresses by engaging them toward herself. Such was Miss Lucas's scheme, and appearances were so favorable that when they parted at night, she would have felt almost sure of success if he had not been to leave Hertfordshire so very soon. Man, this is annoying because I don't think so. It's like she doesn't have any feelings for Mr. Collins. Maybe she does. I don't think she does. I don't think anybody could have feelings for Mr. Collins. But she doesn't. She's doing this to protect Lizzie, and Mr. Collins is probably viewing this as flirting. So Mr. Collins is probably going to propose. Blech. But here, she did injustice to the fire and independence of his character, for it led him to escape out of Longbourn House the next morning with admirable slyness, and hastened to Lucas Lodge to throw himself at her feet. Wait, it already happens? Hold on. Wait, I thought that was going to take like a few chapters. Wait, she's not doing the protect Lizzie? Did I misread something? The Bennets were engaged to dine at the Lucases, and again during the chief of the day was Miss Lucas so kind as to listen to Mr. Collins. Elizabeth took an opportunity of thanking her. It keeps him in good humor, she said, and I am more obliged to you than I can express. Charlotte assured her friend of her satisfaction in being useful, and that it amiably repaid her for the little sacrifice of her time. This was very amiable, but Charlotte's kindness extended farther than Elizabeth had any conception of. Its object was nothing less than to secure her from any return. And then to secure her, being Elizabeth. Its object was nothing less than to secure her from any return of Mr. Collins's addresses by engaging them toward herself. Such was Miss Lucas's scheme. And appearances were so favorable that when they parted, she would have felt almost sure of success if he had not been to leave Hertfordshire so very soon. So, I did not read it as to that she's doing this to engage him to herself. I still read that as, maybe that's a weird sentence to me. Its object was nothing less than to secure her. What's the her there? I read that immediately as she's securing Elizabeth from any return of Mr. Collins's addresses by engaging them toward herself, being Miss Lucas. I just read this as distraction. Secure is because it's Austen's writing from Elle's Elizabeth's POV. Like, I still don't know if I read that where Charlotte is keeping Elizabeth safe from a second proposal by getting him to want Charlotte instead. I don't know if is that her actual objective? I did not. Wow, that's really interesting that you get because I'm not reading that as, I'm just reading it as like she's just chatting it up so much. Okay, so maybe this just has to do with the intelligence of Charlotte. If she's brilliant, which she probably is, she's probably one of the smartest people in this book. She's purposefully doing this to get engaged. Huh, interesting. I read it more as like she was just trying to help Lizzie to not have to get in conversation. And so she was just being a good friend. But she's a little bit more crafty. All right, a little sly. But here she did injustice to the fire and independence of his character, for it led him to escape out of Longbourn House the next morning with admirable slyness and hastened to Lucas Lodge to throw himself at her feet. He was anxious to avoid the notice of his cousins, from a conviction that if they saw him depart, they could not fail to conjecture his design. And he was not willing to have the attempt known till its success could be known likewise. For though feeling almost secure, and with reason, for Charlotte had been tolerably encouraging, he was comparatively diffident since the adventure of Wednesday. His reception, however, was of the most flattering kind. Miss Lucas perceived him from an upper window as he walked toward the house, and instantly set out to meet him accidentally in the lane. Dang, she's crafty. I mean, who among us haven't done that? Where like we see like our crush walking down the street, and you're like, oh, throw everything on, and you're just like casually walking by them. Oh, I didn't see you. I didn't know you were going to be here. But little has she dared to hope that so much love and eloquence awaited her there. What? But little has she dared to hope that so much love and eloquence awaited her there. Now, this is fascinating from the writing perspective of, now that we're in Miss Lucas's perspective, Collins is filled with love and eloquence. What? Interesting. In as short a time as Mr. Collins' long speeches would allow, everything was settled between them to the satisfaction of both. And as they entered the house, he earnestly entreated her to name the day that was to make him the happiest of men. And though such a solicitation must be waived for the present, the lady felt no inclination to trifle with his happiness. The stupidity with which he was favored by nature must guard his courtship from any charm that can make a woman wish for its continuance. And Miss Lucas, who accepted him solely from the pure and disinterested desire of an establishment, cared not how soon that establishment were gained. Who accepted him solely from the pure and disinterested desire of an establishment? Those two words don't make sense to me. The pure and disinterested desire. Like, is that saying like she doesn't care about the person that she marries? She just cares about getting married? Pure and disinterested desire is sarcasm. Okay. Disinterested, no emotional hangups. Purely a business transaction. Okay. That's wild. That's so wild. Imagine. Crazy. This is crazy. Okay. Crazy. You know what? Sometimes this works. I'm not gonna bash Charlotte because again, she's one of my favorites. Sometimes this does work. This kind of happened in my life. One of my good friends years and years ago was really interested in me, and the feelings weren't really reciprocal. And she essentially I'm not gonna go into too many details, but like there was like somewhat of a we need to talk about this. Do we want to date or go further or not? And I was like, I don't think so. And she was like, I do. And she was like, I'll give you like a week to decide. And I was like, I don't really think I want to do this. And then I rejected her, which sucked because she was one of my best friends. And a week later, she was dating another guy, and they got married 4 months later. That felt like she just wanted to get married. This is kind of what that feels like. Like Charlotte just wants to get married. And I think it just works for some people. Like it's really interesting. Like some people can be happy in a relationship like this. Charlotte would end up living at Longbourn. Dang. Okay. Crazy. That is crazy. Imagine your best friend kicking you out of your house because she gets engaged to a guy that proposed to you already. Wow, this is a tangled web. How old is Collins again? Charlotte's like 28, right? Which I understand. Well, like it's like sad that you have to feel like you're 28 to get married. Like I'm 34 and I'm not married, and that's crazy. Charlotte is 27. Collins is only 25. Interesting. I thought Collins was a little bit older. Wow, good for her. She's robbing the cradle. Just kidding. He's in his 20s too. He feels to me older. Maybe because he's so droll and boring. Wow, like. I'm bummed for Charlotte, but at the same time, I'm like, good for you. One second. This is so interesting to me. Wow. Okay, we got to keep reading. Cared not how soon that establishment were gained. Sir William and Lady Lucas were speedily applied to for their consent, and it was bestowed with a most joyful alacrity. Mr. Collins' present circumstances made it a most eligible match for their daughter, to whom they could give little fortune, and his prospects of future wealth were exceedingly fair. I'm guessing wealth in this case just means like he's making a good income, and that a good income will keep up probably for his life. Not that he's actually going to be wealthy. Oh yeah, future wealth, Longbourn. Dang, oh my gosh. This is crazy to me now. Because in the previous chapter, Mrs. Bennet was gloating about how they're gonna have oh man, the tides are turning now. Oh, this is totally just Miss Lucas getting thrilled that she can throw something back in Miss Bennet's face. They don't like each other at all. They're rivals. That's so funny. She's like, oh, the cards are falling right before me now. Mr. Collins' present circumstances made it a most eligible match for their daughter, to whom they can give little fortune, and his prospects of future wealth were exceedingly fair. Lady Lucas began directly to calculate with more interest than the matter had ever excited before how many years longer Mr. Bennet was likely to live. Wow, this is crazy. Yeah, I think they're still going to be good buds, but there's going to be tension between the two. Lady Lucas began directly to calculate with more interest than the matter had ever excited before how many years longer Mr. Bennet was likely to live. And Sir William gave it as his decided opinion that whenever Mr. Collins should be in possession of the Longbourn estate, it would be highly expedient that both he and his wife should make their appearance at St. James. At St. James's. What's that? Why do they have is St. James like the street that they're on? St. James means court. Okay. Make their appearance. Why do they make their appearance at court though? Just to like go? Is this like changing the status? Oh, Sir William. Because they're just fancy? Like the King's Ball? Okay, interesting. The whole family, in short, were properly overjoyed on the occasion. The younger girls formed hopes of coming out a year or two sooner than they might have otherwise done. And the boys were relieved from their apprehension of Charlotte's dying an old maid. Charlotte herself was tolerably composed. Austen loves the word tolerably, or tolerable. She had gained her point and had time to consider of it. Her reflections were in general satisfactory. Mr. Collins, to be sure, was neither sensible nor agreeable. His society was irksome, and his attachment to her must be imaginary. But still he would be her husband. His attachment to her must be imaginary. She is so wise, so practical. I feel bad for her, but I also love her at the same time. But still he would be her husband. Without thinking highly either of men or of matrimony, marriage had always been her object. It was the only honorable provision for well-educated young women of small fortune, and however uncertain of giving happiness, must be their pleasantnesses or pleasantest preservative from want. This preservative she now had obtained, and at the age of 27, without having ever been handsome, she felt all the good luck of it. Man, just so conflicted. The least agreeable circumstance in the business was the surprise it must occasion to Elizabeth Bennet, whose friendship she valued beyond that of any other person. Elizabeth would wonder, and probably would blame her. And though her resolution was not to be shaken, her feelings must be hurt by such disapprobation. She resolved to give her the information herself, and therefore charged Mr. Collins, when he returned to Longbourn to dinner, to drop no hint of what had passed before any of the family. A promise of secrecy was, of course, very dutifully given, but it could not be kept without difficulty, for the curiosity excited by his long absence burst forth in very direct questions on his return, as required some ingenuity to evade, and he was at the same time exercising great self-denial, for he was long to publish his prosperous love. This dude just wants to go out and tell everyone. Yeah, it's like interesting because I don't think I would want to be in a situation like Lucas or like Mr. Collins. Like don't know if I would want someone to get married. I don't know if I would want to marry someone just because they want to get married rather than you get married to the person. Like I think the ideal is you want someone to be interested in you for who you are, not interested in marriage for the tax benefits of marriage. But if she's happy, I'm happy for her. She's crafty. She's like smart. Because of her smartness and her slyness, I'm like, good for her. She's making it. She's making a name for herself. She's like a person who is really taking agency in this novel. I don't mind that. Yeah, if both are doing that, yeah, I'm kind of with you. If both are getting married just to get married. But I don't think Mr. Collins is necessarily doing that. Well, he kind of is, but he's like fooling himself that he thinks like Mr. Collins is doing that in reality. But I think he's fooling himself into thinking that he really, really admires the person that he's marrying, which he probably does admire her to some extent, but like he thinks he's marrying out of love, which he's not really marrying out of love. Like I think he's that much of a fool that he thinks he's marrying his love, but in reality he's marrying his practicality. But yeah, I do love her agency, and she's like making decisions on her own. Like her parents aren't really helping her out that much either. Like what have her parents done in the last few years of her life to like help her get a prospect? Probably not much if she's 27 and hasn't really gotten a prospect. And she's this smart too. Like they can for sure broadcast that. They're like, look, she might not be the prettiest girl, but she's smart. Yeah, and exactly. He's so silly and so dumb that he probably will think that forever. But yeah, so that's the interesting thing. In his speech to Elizabeth, he was mentioning all the like the practicality reasons, but those were like at the beginning of the speech, and I don't necessarily like he is doing that because he just likes long speeches, but I do think in his mind he thinks that he's in love with her when he is just in love with the idea of marriage. Like I think he's just such a fool that he doesn't really understand the difference between that. But again, like sometimes things like that work, like marriage between two people like this, just practicality, and you might not like really, really love the other person, or you do love the other person, but you might not like the other person. And it does just work sometimes. So good for Charlotte, but if my opinions weren't so negative of Mr. Collins, I'd be a little happier for her. I just think that she's marrying a bimbo and like a actual mean person. I just don't like Mr. Collins. So I'm conflicted on this for her sake. Like I know, like honestly, if this were anybody else but her, I would be a little nervous because he would be a bit more manipulative, but I don't think she's going to be pushed around. So again, I like this for her because she's a woman to be reckoned with, or to not be reckoned with. Yeah. Like she is not going to get pushed around in this marriage. So I like that for her. I like this. Okay. I don't know. I'm still so conflicted. I still think that he is more mean than anything else. The last chapter, his proposal of Elizabeth, kind of like showed that to me. But yeah, Isabel, that's a great point. That's what I kind of think is wrong with him. That if you are with him, he might be nice to you. If you're not, he is going to rip you apart. He's going to like eviscerate you. And I just don't like that at all. And yeah, great point. I think he doesn't think that he is mean, which is probably the worst part. Like, to me, Charlotte, and we gotta get back to reading, but to me, Charlotte is so smart that she's gonna make him think like he has the upper hand in the marriage and like is the one that is in control of things, but he's really not gonna be. I think Charlotte is really gonna be the one that is in control in this marriage. And it's gonna work for him because Charlotte's just too smart. No, not like Darcy. My lovely Darcy. I know Darcy does think he's mean. Darcy is self-aware. Darcy definitely is self-aware enough to know that he thinks he's mean. He's even said that. He's like, I just get annoyed with people. He's like, I'm pissed off at people all the time with their inconsistencies. At least he's self-aware about it, which makes it better. A little bit better. All right, let's keep reading. As he was to begin his journey too early on the morrow to see any of the family, the ceremony of leave-taking was performed when the ladies moved for the night. And Mrs. Bennet, with great politeness and cordiality, said how happy they should be to see him at Longbourn again, whenever his other engagements might allow him to visit them. My dear madam, he replied, this invitation is particularly gratifying because it is what I have been hoping to receive. And you may be very certain that I shall avail myself of it as soon as possible. They were all astonished, and Mr. Bennet, who could by no means wish for a speedy return, immediately said, But is there not danger of Lady Catherine's disapprobation here, my good sir? You had better neglect your relations than run the risk of offending your patroness. My dear sir, replied Mr. Collins, I am particularly obliged to you for this friendly caution, and you may have depended upon my not taking so material a step without her ladyship's concurrence. You cannot be too much on your guard. Risk anything rather than her displeasure. And if you find it likely to be raised by your coming to us again, which I should think exceedingly probable, stay quietly at home and be satisfied that we shall take no offense. Believe me, my dear sir, my gratitude is warmly excited by such affectionate attention, and depend upon it, you will speedily receive from me a letter of thanks for this, as well as for every other mark of your regard during my stay at Hertfordshire. As for my fair cousins, though my absence may not long be enough, or may not be long enough to render it necessary, I shall now take the liberty of wishing them health and happiness, not excepting my cousin Elizabeth. Oh my gosh. This is absurd. He is just... he is such an absurd character. This is crazy. With proper civilities, the ladies then withdrew, all of them equally surprised to find that he mediated a quick return. Mrs. Bennet wished to understand by it that he thought of paying his addresses to one of her younger girls, and Mary might have been prevailed on to accept him. Ooh. Which could have been a good marriage, to be completely honest. She rated his abilities much higher than any of the others. There was a solidarity in his reflections which often struck her. And though by no means so clever as herself, she thought that if encouraged to read and improve himself by such an example as hers, he might become a very agreeable companion. Oh, this is actually kind of cute. This is so Mary. But on the following morning, every hope of this kind was done away with. Miss Lucas called soon after breakfast, and in a private conference with Elizabeth related the events of the day before. Uh-oh. Yeah, Mary is vain. Yeah, poor Mary. Poor little Mary, our little old Mary. Bless her heart. The possibility of Mr. Collins's fancying himself in love. See, this is the thing. The possibility of Mr. Collins fancying himself in love with her friend had once occurred to Elizabeth within the last day or two. But that Charlotte could encourage him seemed almost as far from possibility that she could encourage him herself. And her astonishment was consequently so great as to overcome at first the bounds of decorum, and she could not help crying out, "Engaged to Mr. Collins, my dear Charlotte, impossible." A steady countenance which Miss Lucas had commanded. Ooh, man, Charlotte is just the smallest little things. The steady countenance which Miss Lucas had commanded in telling her story gave way to a momentary confusion here on receiving so direct a reproach. Though, as it was no more than she expected, she soon regained her composure and calmly replied, "Why should you be surprised, my dear Eliza? Do you think it incredible that Mr. Collins should be able to procure any woman's good opinion, because he was not so happy as to succeed with you?" Whew, dang. Whew, man, okay. All right, Charlotte, go ahead. Man, that is... Man. All right. Go eviscerate your friend. I support. But Elizabeth had now recollected herself, and making a strong effort for it, was able to assure her with tolerable firmness that the prospect of their relationship was highly grateful to her, and that she wished her all imaginable happiness. That's kind of cute. Good for Elizabeth there. That's actually lovely. I'm surprised at that. I thought Elizabeth was going to put up much more of a fight, and her and Charlotte might be a little bit at odds with each other. But Elizabeth's prioritizing her friendship here. That is actually shocking to me. Not shocking, because I think this is Elizabeth's character, but it's shocking that happened so quickly. And she is making a strong effort for it. So she doesn't necessarily feel this, but she's trying to maintain the friendship there. Yeah, when Lizzie can control her wit, she can be lovely, honestly. Also, what is that in Spanish? El diablo se viste de cordero. What does that mean? The devil visits the cordero. I don't know. What does that mean? The lamb. Oh, okay. Maybe a watch guide elsewhere. Miniseries retelling Pride and Prejudice as an office internship comedy. The devil dresses as a lamb. Interesting. Yeah, she's definitely feeling internal conflict here. I see what you are feeling, replied Charlotte. You must be surprised, very much surprised. So lately as Mr. Collins was wishing to marry you. But when you've had time to think it all over, I hope you will be satisfied with what I have done. I am not romantic, you know. I never was. I ask only a comfortable home, and considering Mr. Collins' character, connections, and his life situation, I am convinced that my chance of happiness with him is as fair as most people can boast on their entering the marriage state. Man. Like, good for her, but I don't know. Elizabeth quietly answered, undoubtedly. And after an awkward pause, they returned to the rest of the family. Charlotte did not stay much longer, and Elizabeth was then left to reflect on what she had heard. It was a long time before she became at all reconciled to the idea of so unsuitable a match. The strangeness of Mr. Collins making 2 offers of marriage within 3 days was nothing in comparison of his being now accepted. That is crazy. Like, Elizabeth's like, which is true. I'm not shocked that he made 2 marriage proposals within 3 days. But it is shocking that one of them got accepted. But again, this is like interesting because it's like Elizabeth's perspective versus Charlotte's. Like, they're just not on the same page. Like, Charlotte is not marrying for romance, and Elizabeth is projecting the idea that she should marry for romance onto Charlotte. She had always felt that Charlotte's opinion of matrimony was not exactly like her own, but she could not have supposed it possible that when called into action she would have sacrificed every better feeling to worldly advantage. Charlotte, the wife of Mr. Collins, was a most humiliating picture. And to the pang of a friend disgracing herself and sunk in her esteem was added the distressing conviction that it was impossible for that friend to be tolerably happy in the lot she had chosen. She would have sacrificed every better feeling to worldly advantage. That's so interesting. Two proposals in the first being rude AF is crazy. For sure. For sure. So funny to me, though. Man. All right, chapter 23. I cannot believe that just happened so quickly. Wow. Lizzie with her vlog. Producer Charlotte. Lizzie is disillusioned with Charlotte, but she also can't put herself in Charlotte's shoes here. Yeah, Lizzie is unable to actually understand what Charlotte is doing. Yeah. So interesting. All right, chapter 23. Elizabeth was sitting with her mother and sisters, reflecting on what she had heard, and doubting whether she were authorized to mention it, when Sir William Lucas himself appeared, sent by his daughter to announce her engagement to the family. Why is he a sir again? Did it mention that? With many compliments to them, and much self-congratulations on the prospect of a connection between the houses, he unfolded the matter to an audience not merely wondering, but incredulous. For Mrs. Bennet, with more perseverance than politeness, protested that he must be entirely mistaken. And Lydia, always unguarded and often uncivilly, boisterously exclaimed, "Good Lord, Sir William, how can you tell such a story? Do you not know that Mr. Collins wants to marry Lizzie?" Gosh, this is crazy. So I know he was recently knighted, but what was he knighted for? That's my question. Lizzie says that she always has an unmatched marriage is the worst because of her parents, and Jane agrees. She didn't listen when Charlotte said that love isn't important to secure marriage. Honestly. And that's a great point too, in that they're coming from the point of seeing their parents' marriage, and that's probably a huge part of why Elizabeth is so disagreeable to that. That's actually a really great point. Like, Elizabeth sees her parents' marriage. Great point. He got it for making a speech when the king visited. Oh, okay. I remember that, kind of. Yeah, for Jane, marriage is the goal. For Lizzie, love is the goal. And right now, one of them is winning and the other one is losing. Like, one of them is a bimbo. The other one is getting what she wants. Kissing up to the king. That's funny. All right, let's keep going. Nothing less than the complacence of a courtier would have borne without anger such treatment. But Sir William's good breeding carried him through it all. His good breeding. And though he begged leave to be positive as to the truth of his information, he listened to all their impertinence with the most forbearing courtesy. I kind of like Sir William. He's a patient guy. I like patience in a person. Elizabeth, feeling it incumbent on her to relieve him from so unpleasant a situation, now put herself forward to confirm his account by mentioning her prior knowledge of it from Charlotte herself, and endeavored to put a stop on the exclamations of her mother and sister by the earnestness of her congratulations to Sir William, in which she was readily joined by Jane, and making a variety of remarks on the happiness that might be expected from the match, the excellent character of Mr. Collins, and the convenient distance of Hunsford from London. Mrs. Bennet was in fact too much overpowered to say a great deal while Sir William remained. But no sooner had he left them than her feelings found a rapid vent. Here we go. In the first place, she persisted in disbelieving the whole of the matter. Secondly, she was very secure that Mr. Collins had been taken in. Thirdly, she trusted that they would never be happy together. And fourthly, that the match might be broken off. This is why I just don't like Mrs. Bennet, because she's just mean at heart. Like, she, to me, so there was something that in the beginning of this novel, I saw a short that L.E. Dashwood did on the note of, like, Mr. Collins in the beginning, or Mr. Bennet says, oh, like, you're beautiful, everyone would be looking at you. And Mrs. Bennet says something akin to, like, oh, it's proper for older women to, let their daughters have the prettiness. But I don't think Mrs. Bennet actually believes that, because she is doing everything in her power to essentially gain gossip and to gain, like, the ability to, like, trash talk Miss Lucas right now, or Lady Lucas. Like, I feel like everything in her is hoping that they fail and that she succeeds. So she's, like, to me, nasty. Again, in the first place, she persisted in disbelieving the whole matter. Like, okay, that's fine. Secondly, she was very sure that Mr. Collins had been taken in. She's accepted it. Thirdly, she trusted that they would never be happy together. Like, look at your own marriage, Mrs. Bennet. And fourthly, that the match might be broken off. Like, she's not really nice. She's not looking out for one of her daughter's best friend's interest. Which, I mean, like, yeah, you don't have to necessarily look out for that. But, like, come on. Two inferences, however, were plainly deduced from the whole. One, that Elizabeth was the real cause of all the mischief. Now, this is going to be sad because she's going to take this all out on her daughter, Elizabeth. And the other, that she herself had been barbarously used by them all. Like, again, there is just so many indications that I just cannot stand Mrs. Bennet. She's just, like, playing the victim. Like, everyone is wronging her. And now I think she's going to go really down on Elizabeth because Elizabeth is the cause of all her grief and the cause of her poor nerves. I think the Lucases bought an estate. They have a lot of kids, so the next generation is going to have trouble sustaining that situation in life. Interesting. Yeah, they definitely have like a one-upmanship. I love that. One-upmanship battle. That's a great way to put it. Yeah, they're definitely trying to one-up each other. But they're like doing it in a mean and nasty way. It's not just like, yeah, they're like wishing ill to the other person. The title isn't inherited, so Charlotte is doing well. Nothing. Barford's speech. And on these 2 points, she principally dwelt during the rest of the day. Nothing can console and nothing appease her. Nor did that day wear out her resentment. A week elapsed before she could see Elizabeth without scolding her. A month passed away before she could speak to Sir William or Lady Lucas without being rude. And many months were gone before she could at all forgive their daughter. Like, that is nasty. That's like not great. Mr. Bennet's emotions were much more tranquil on the occasion, and such as he did experience, he pronounced to be of a most agreeable sort. For it gratified him, he said, to discover that Charlotte Lucas, whom he had been used to think tolerably sensible, was as foolish as his wife, and more foolish than his daughter. That's nasty. What a fun winter everyone is for. That is actually awful. I don't like them at all. Like, again, and it's interesting the writing here because Jane Austen is like, so this is so fascinating to me because I'm curious what people initially thought of him. I think there's a big difference between men and women in how they read Pride and Prejudice. Because when she's writing this, I am sure that there are guys in the Regency era who are reading this, and they like everything that Mr. Bennet does is almost comedic. It has this comedic air behind it. So I think she's like hiding what he does in comedy, which makes it look less bad than what his wife is doing. And it's almost like through the two, she's showing the disparity of how you're supposed to feel for these characters. Because even in the beginning, I was kind of like enamored a bit more with Mr. Bennet than Mrs. Bennet. And I still don't like Mrs. Bennet. I think I dislike her more than I dislike Mr. Bennet. But again, both of them are terrible. But it's like Jane Austen is disguising one of them in comedy, which makes him not more tolerable, like as a person, but more tolerable maybe to the reader. So she's like, maybe that's like a little critique on how we read. I'm curious, when you're reading this as a woman, do you just see through this and see how awful this is? Like, I'm sure people were reading this and they were like completely seeing through that. And all the guys were like Mr. Hearst and just like concerned about food and card games. Interesting. Jane confessed herself a little surprised at the match, but she said less of her astonishment than of her earnest desire for their happiness. Nor could Elizabeth persuade her to consider it as improbable. Kitty and Lydia were far from envying Miss Lucas, for Mr. Collins was only a clergyman, and it affected them in no other way than as a piece of news to spread at Meryton. Poor little Mary. We don't even get a sentence on Mary. Mary was off devastated playing sad songs on the piano because she was so sad. So I don't think, but no. Well, the interesting thing is, maybe I'm reading this paragraph wrong. Mr. Bennet's emotions were more tranquil on the occasion, and such as he did experience, he pronounced to be of a most agreeable sort. It gratifies him that he's like, to me, this is saying he's happy that Charlotte Lucas, like, it's entertaining him that he's like, oh, the inconsistencies here with Charlotte Lucas. I used to think she's smart. Now she's as dumb as my wife and dumber than my daughter. Maybe I'm reading that wrong. Some of Mr. Bennet's critiques of Charlotte come from his own Yeah, 100% I feel like that. Like, to me, he's like comparing his own relationship with his wife right now. Yeah, Janie, that is exactly it. Pointing out your own inconsistencies. Just because one character is funnier than the others. Original audience would have seen it straight away, but for modern audiences, need to learn about the times and understand what's going on. Yeah, probably. Oh, just a gnat just flew into my face. This is so fascinating. I just keep saying that, but it really is. Lady Lucas could not be insensible of triumph on being able to retort on Mrs. Bennet the comfort of having a daughter well married, and she called at Longbourn rather oftener than usual to say how happy she was. Though Mrs. Bennet's sour looks and ill-natured remarks might have been enough to drive away happiness. This legitimately feels like a Real Housewives of whatever. Real Housewives of where is this? Hertfordshire. Or wherever, whatever main area they're in. The Shire, whatever Shire. The Real Housewives of the Shire. Like, they're just gloating over each other. They're like, oh, I'm going to come visit you more and rub it in your face. Don't speak bad of my beloved Darcy. I think it's just interesting. Yeah, I think... No, I get to Jane's reaction. Jane confessed herself a little surprised at the match, but she said less of her astonishment than of her earnest desire for their happiness, which is lovely. Jane is the best. Again, this is why Jane is the best. Nor could Elizabeth persuade her to consider it as improbable. Like that, Jane is my favorite. Like, Jane's like, this is surprising, but I wish you all the best. Like, I wish you all the happiness in your marriage, which is like all you can do. Stop gossiping about everything. Stop having opinions about everything and just wish the best for people. This is why Jane is the best character in this novel. Nemo, I will oppose you saying that Charlotte is. I love Charlotte. This is why Jane is the best character in this novel. She's so lovely. Jane is just the best. Guys, I love Jane so much. He picked a hot girl and has repented in leisure. Charlotte didn't. Charlotte did the opposite? Yeah, did the opposite. Yeah, there wasn't a lot else going on in the neighborhood, but still. Just like Desperate Housewives or Real Housewives. Between Elizabeth and Charlotte, there was a restraint which kept them mutually silent on the subject. And Elizabeth felt persuaded that no real confidence could ever subsist between them again. That's sad. Her disappointment in Charlotte made her turn with fonder regard to her sister, of whose rectitude and delicacy she was sure her opinion could never be shaken. That's sad that this is going to come between us. She was sure her opinion could never be shaken, and for whose happiness, did I miss a paragraph? She grew daily more anxious, as Bingley had now been gone a week, and nothing was heard of his return. And guys, for Jane to be doing this and wish her happy in the midst of her being miserable and depressed because Bingley is gone. Jane is such a good person. What's the point in reading a book if you don't have crazy extreme opinions? I love having extreme opinions. They're all definitely flawed, but really, Jane is not flawed. Jane is just the best. Jane had sent Caroline an early answer to her letter and was counting the days till she might reasonably hope to hear again. The promised letter of thanks from Mr. Collins arrived on Tuesday, addressed to their father, and written with all the solemnity of gratitude which 12 months' abode in the family might have prompted. After discharging his conscience on that head, he proceeded to inform them, with many rapturous expressions of his happiness in having obtained the affection of their amiable neighbor, Miss Lucas, and then explained that it was merely with the view of enjoying her society that he had been so ready to close with their kind wish of seeing him again at Longbourn, whither he hoped to be able to return on Monday fortnight. For Lady Catherine, he added, so heartily approved his marriage that she wished it to take place as soon as possible, which he trusted would be an unanswerable argument with his amiable Charlotte to name an early day for making him the happiest of men. Mr. Collins's return to Hertfordshire was no longer a matter of pleasure to Mrs. Bennet. On the contrary, she was as much disposed to complain of it as her husband. It was very strange that he should come to Longbourn instead of to Lucas Lodge, which is like he's again almost like gloating the fact that this is going to become his place. It was also very convenient and exceedingly troublesome. She hated having visitors in the house while her health was so indifferent. And lovers were of all people the most disagreeable. This is so funny. Such were the gentle murmurs of Mrs. Bennet, and they gave way only to the greater distress of Mr. Bingley's continued absence. I mean, granted, Mrs. Bennet is going through a lot right here. I understand why she did it, but I get Elizabeth's POV more. Jane is not flawed. Crystal, come on. Yeah, she is, but I still just love her. She's sweet and she's innocent and she's so smart and she's so kind. She's great. She's so lovely. Neither Jane nor Elizabeth were comfortable on this subject. Day after day passed without bringing any news of other tidings of him. Then the report which shortly prevailed in Meryton of his coming no more to Netherfield the whole winter. A report which highly incensed Mrs. Bennet, and which she never failed to contradict as a most scandalous falsehood. Dang. Man. Even Elizabeth began to fear. Not that Bingley was indifferent, but that his sisters would be successful in keeping him away. Unwilling as she was to admit an idea so destructive to Jane's happiness, and so dishonorable to the stability of her lover that she could not prevent its frequent recurring. The united efforts of his two unfeeling sisters and his overpowering friend, assisted by the attractions of Miss Darcy and the amusements of London, might be too much, she feared, for the strength of his attachment. Now, this is for sure Lizzie's own mind coming into play here. Because she's like, thinking of Jane and Bingley like really loving each other. And she's like, oh, he might just get distracted by London right now and might like forget about it, which could be kind of potentially true. Ooh, are we having a debate on Lizzie, Charlotte, and Collins right now? I'm gonna let you guys have that debate. I'll chat about it after. I just want to keep reading. This is so interesting to me. Oh, also, everyone liked the stream. I always forget to say that. Can you imagine me forgetting to say to like the stream? I think, let me comment on that right now. I think that, I don't think it's necessarily dishonest, but I can get, like, we're talking about, I think one of the best parts of Jane Austen's work is that you get things from different characters. So I think right now you guys are arguing things from different characters' perspectives, which that's why she's a really effective writer, because from Lizzie's perspective, she is 100%, from Lizzie's perspective, Charlotte was 100%, like dishonest, like maybe. Charlotte was 100% sly and like crafty and like it was strange, which is why I think her walls went up right here and why she's like, I don't want to be friends with her. But from Charlotte's perspective, which is what we really see in the novel, I don't think it's all that bad. Yeah, I had to read it twice. Mainly that's because my incompetence in reading sometimes, but Mr. Collins has lucked out. He's bagged a baddie right now. He's bagged someone of real intelligence, which more than you can say about him. He's someone who feigns intelligence. Yeah, I think it would have been clear to contemporary readers. But at the same time, I think we're smart, guys. I think we can give ourselves more credit than this. But at the same point, I do think that you're getting a lot from different characters. I think that Austen is really good at that, like writing perspectives and different characters and really getting into their shoes and then giving you the bias of that character through whatever they're going through. So I think we get Charlotte's bias in what she wants there, and we don't necessarily get Elizabeth's until we know what Elizabeth is feeling, and it's kind of written through her perspective a little bit, where Elizabeth feels slighted by their friendship because Charlotte did seem to like go behind her back to some extent, even though she was doing it right out front. Like Elizabeth did not expect that to happen, and like if they were really good friends, maybe they could have talked about that before. I don't know if it was dishonesty. I don't know. I probably wouldn't say it's dishonesty, but I think I definitely think like maybe they just didn't have time to talk about it, but like there's a level where I'm sure Elizabeth is going like, I would have been fine with this if you just came and talked to me about it. Probably not. I don't know if Elizabeth would necessarily feel that, but like maybe she would. Maybe she'd be like, if you just came up to me, like I thought we were friends. I thought you told me everything. And so now you're engaged to Mr. Collins. Like that is crazy. Yeah, honestly, Charlotte didn't have time to talk to her. That's a great point. But still, even in their flirtations with each other, they were still in the same they were still kind of in the same room. So Charlotte could have been like, "Hey, I am doing this. I know you probably don't want me to do this, but I kind of want to do this because I want to get married. I know we're different. I know it's been 2 days, but still, girls can go to the bathroom together. And they can say, "Hey, look, this is what's happening." Yeah, sneaky is the right word for it. I think that's a great point. Yeah, Lana, I'm totally with you there. I think Lizzie is blind to the different circumstances. Lizzie is Prejudice, guys. I mean, the book literally said that she was being sly about it. Like, so I don't know how you can't say that she's not being sneaky about it. She's definitely being sneaky about it. Like she's being very sly about that, I think. It's less about the engagement and more that she didn't understand Charlotte as much as she thought she did. It's more about the misunderstanding of character. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the whole book, Pride and Prejudice, guys. Wait, where was that comment? I miss so much. I love these. But I still think there's like a double meaning there. Sly as in smart for sure, but sly, why not just write the word smart then? I think it's both. Maybe it's just language changes, obviously, but. I never really thought that Lizzie was a great judge of character. I feel like that's actually the opposite. I feel like she's not a good judge of character. You happen to agree with the Bennetts. Mr. Collins was sly. But did it say that? Maybe it did. I don't know. I don't remember. All right, I'm going to keep reading. You guys can keep having a lively debate in the comments. Also, everyone like the stream. Yeah, Lizzie thinks she's a great judge of character. Yeah, so she's, so we're getting to Lizzie. Like, yeah, she thinks she's a good judge of character, but I think in the beginning we know that she's not really a good judge of character. Maybe we're supposed to feel like she is, but I don't know. I don't think she is. Where am I? As for Jane, her anxiety under this suspense was, of course, more painful than Elizabeth's. But whatever she felt, she was desirous of concealing. And between herself and Elizabeth, therefore, the subject was never alluded to. But as no such delicacy restrained her mother, in an hour seldom passed in which she did not talk of Bingley, express her impatience for his arrival, or even require Jane to confess that if he did not come back, she should think herself very ill-used. Which is kind of true. It needed all Jane's steady mildness to bear these attacks with tolerable tranquility. Again, tolerable. She just loves that word. And again, I love this is Jane here, like being composed in this situation. That is like admirable, but it's sad that she's not really able, like maybe she's not able to like actually feel her feelings here because her mother is just a not good listener. Like this is why I think Jane has to play the role of mother here. Like she doesn't want to talk to Elizabeth because she doesn't want to shed this exterior of like, I have to protect and look after you. And then she doesn't have really a mother that she can go to. Jane has no one that she can really talk to about this, like openly. It's sad. Mr. Collins returned most punctually on the Monday fortnight, but his reception at Longbourn was not quite so gracious as it had been on his first introduction. He was too happy, however, to need much attention, and luckily for the others, the business of love-making relieved them from a great deal of his company. The chief of every day was spent by him at Lucas Lodge, and he sometimes returned to Longbourn only in time to make an apology for his absence before the family went to bed. Mrs. Bennet was really in a most pitiable state. The very mention of anything concerning the match threw her into an agony of ill humor, and wherever she went she was sure of hearing it talked of. The sight of Miss Lucas was odious to her, and her successor in that house she regarded her with jealous abhorrence. Whenever Charlotte came to see them, she concluded her to be anticipating the hour of possession, and whenever she spoke in a low voice to Mr. Collins, was convinced that they were talking of the Longbourn estate, and resolving to turn herself and her daughters out of the house as soon as Mr. Bennet were dead. She complained bitterly of all this to her husband. "Indeed, Mr. Bennet," she said, "it is very hard to think that Charlotte Lucas should ever be mistress of this house, that I should be forced to make way for her, and live to see her make it my place in it, and live to see her take my place in it. My dear, do not give way to such gloomy thoughts. Let us hope for better things. Let us flatter ourselves that I may be the survivor." That's not a great thing to say to your wife who's struggling right there. Don't worry. I'm going to outlive you. Enjoy class. And Love being annoyed with your opinions. And guys, annoy me with your opinions all the time. These chats, we all need to be kind. You guys are all kind, so I love that. We all have lively debates on this stuff. Just respect each other's opinions. Yeah, it's kind of funny, but that's the thing. Like, everything that he says is supposed to be funny. So you don't you're not as hard on him as you are on other characters. This was not very consoling to Mrs. Bennet, and therefore, instead of making any answer, she went on as before. I cannot bear to think that they should have all this estate. If it was not for the entail, I should not mind it. What's the entail? The entail of the estate? Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like, Mr. Collins would 100% turn the Bennets out as soon as they're dead. Collins inheriting. Okay. Entail is the only boys inherit the inheritance. Okay. Which, I mean, she has a point there. Like, if she might be happy about this. Like, she was essentially trying to marry off one of her daughters so that they had the family house still. Which isn't great, but isn't terrible. I don't know. I feel conflicted about that. What should not you mind? I should not mind anything at all. Let us be thankful you are preserved from a state of such insensibility. I can never be thankful, Mr. Bennet, for anything about the entail. How anyone could have the conscience to entail away an estate from one's own daughters, I cannot understand. And all for the sake of Mr. Collins, too. Why should he have it more than anybody else? I leave it to yourself to determine, said Mr. Bennet. I mean, she has a really great point here. She's just like, I mean, she can't change anything. And Mr. Collins is like, I really can't change anything. So he's like, we've already had this discussion. So, I don't know. Kind of see both of their takes here. But she's still intolerable and still really annoying. All right, chapter 24. Going right through this. We'll do 2 more chapters. Miss Bingley's letter arrived with an end. Miss Bingley's letter arrived and put an end to doubt. The very first sentence conveyed the assurance of their being all settled in London for the winter, and concluded with her brother's regret at not having had time to pay his respects to his friend in Hertfordshire before he left for the country. He was over. Entirely, or hope was over, entirely over, and when Jane could attend to the rest of the letter, she found little except the professed affection of the writer that could give her any comfort. Mrs. Darcy's praise occupied the chief of it. Her many attractions were again dwelt on, and Caroline boasted joyfully of their increasing intimacy, and ventured to predict the accomplishments of the wishes which had been unfolded in her former letter. She wrote also with great pleasure of her brother's being an inmate of Mr. Darcy's house, and mentioned with raptures some plans of the latter with regard to new furniture. Elizabeth, to whom Jane very soon communicated the chief of all this, heard it in silent indignation. Her heart was divided between concern for her sister and resentment against all the others. To Caroline's assertion of her brother's being partial to Miss Darcy, she paid no credit. That he was really fond of Jane, she doubted no more than she had ever done. And much as she had always been disposed to like him, she could not think without anger, hardly with contempt, on the easiness of temper, that want of proper resolution, which now made him the slave of his designing friends, and led him to sacrifice his own happiness to the caprice of their inclinations. That's a mouthful of a sentence. Wait, new info. Mr. Bennet was the one who started the entail. Oh. Why would they do that? That's so dumb. So there's like another point where Mr. Bennett was just dumb in his early life, and he's just dumb now, and he's just like coasting. He married a woman that he shouldn't have married, probably because she had like, a good bosom or something like that, and went into this. Mrs. Bennett, he entailed it from his daughters. He didn't. So yeah, it doesn't seem like they can like write up a contract like that and they just like kind of agree to it, because otherwise he'd be a moron, which maybe he is. So he didn't create the entail. He just to me it seems like that's a general thing in Regency society. Like the estate just wouldn't pass to a female; it would pass to the next male in line or something like that. He banked on getting a son to cut off his cousin. They were probably hoping for that. Yeah. Mrs. Bennett is accusing him of that, but it doesn't work like that. Okay, interesting. There's an entail you will see later in the book that some women inherit. Oh, interesting. We'll see that when we get to the later parts of the book. Let's keep reading. His own happiness, however, been only the sacrifice, had his own happiness, however, been the sacrifice, he might have been allowed to sport with it in whatever manner he thought best. But his sisters was involved. His sisters was involved in it. As she thought he must be sensible himself, it was a subject, in short, on which reflection would be long indulged, and must be unavailing. She could think of nothing else. And yet whether Bingley's regard had really died away, or were supported by his friend's interferences, whether he had been aware of Jane's attachment, or whether it had escaped his observations, whichever were the case, though her opinion of him must be materially affected by the difference, her sister's situation remained the same. Her peace equally wounded. A day or two passed before Jane had the courage to speak of her feelings to Elizabeth. But at last, on Mrs. Bennet's leaving them together, after a longer irritation than usual about Netherfield and its master, she could not help saying, "Oh, that my dear mother had more command over herself. She can have no idea of the pain that she gives me by her continual reflections on him. But I will not repine. It cannot last. It cannot last long. He will be forgotten, and we shall all be as we were before." Ah. Like, Jane's been sad by herself. That's so tragic, because it's like she's just moving to acceptance so quickly. Like, I feel like maybe she's just had time to mourn this herself. But, man. Elizabeth looked at her sister with incredulous solicitude, but said nothing. "You doubt me," cried Jane, slightly coloring. "Indeed, you have no reason. He may live in my memory as the most amiable man of my acquaintance, but that is all. I have nothing either to hope or fear, and nothing to reproach him with. Thank God, I have not that pain. A little time, therefore. I shall certainly try to get the better." Oh, come on. Why is she so great? I want to be like Jane in my life. Man. She's got to be the healthiest person in this novel. Jane is humble. She's easily convinced that Bingley was not interested in her. I don't think I would. What it's. I feel like it's not necessarily saying that. Maybe it is a little bit. To me, it's like she's like, he love bombed me, and I'm okay with it because she's like, I still think the world of him. I think he's incredible. I think this is pointing out that she's just so kind, and she's just like, she's the best person in this novel. Yeah, honestly, Martina, it's a great point. She does like make everyone else happy at her own expense, which is kind of sad. I'm not saying that they love bombed either. I'm saying to Jane right now, she's probably thinking that. I don't think Bingley's doing that. I think Bingley actually loves her. Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Understanding Jane, like just letting it go. I think that's so mature. That's hard to do. And just like accepting this. She's like accepting it and like kind of she's still like mourning at some point. Interesting, Carol. I'm not reading it as that. I'm not reading necessarily as she thinking that she is in the wrong. Maybe she does to some extent. I'm like her innocence is essentially just like maybe in her mind it is, but I'm like she's just letting it go, which is really mature to me. Anyway, let's keep reading. I just love Jane. I think she's the best. With a stronger voice, she soon added, I have this comfort immediately, that it has not been more than an error of fancy on my side. Oh, there you go. And that it has done no harm to anyone but myself. No, Jane, he does love you. My dear Jane, exclaimed Elizabeth, you are too good. Your sweetness and disinterestedness are really angelic. I do not know what to say to you. I feel as if I never had done you justice, or loved you as you deserve. Miss Bennet eagerly disclaimed all extraordinary merit and threw back the praise on her sister's warm affection. Nay, said Elizabeth, that is not fair. You wish to think all the world respectable, and are hurt if I speak ill of anybody. I only want to think you perfect. And you set yourself against it. Do not be afraid of my running into any excess, of my encroaching on your privilege of universal goodwill. You need not. There are few people whom I really love, and still fewer of whom I think well of. The more I see of the world, the more I am dissatisfied with it, and every day confirms my belief of the inconsistency of all human characters, and of the little dependence that can be placed on the appearance of either merit or sense. I have met with 2 instances lately. One I will not mention. The other is Charlotte's marriage. It is unaccountable. In every view, it is unaccountable. What a prejudice character. Hey, what are you barking at? Most people think Elizabeth's best character. I mean, Elizabeth is... I mean, I just love Darcy so much that I don't like Elizabeth all that much. Because she doesn't like Darcy. You alright, Wes? Are you taking a nap? He's looking at me like I'm crazy right now. My dear Lizzie, do not give way to such feelings as these. They will ruin your happiness. You do not make allowance enough for enough of the situation and temper. Consider Mr. Collins's respectability and Charlotte's prudent, steady character. Remember that she is one of a large family. That as to fortune, it is a most eligible match, and be ready to believe for everybody's sake that she may be feeling something like regard and esteem for our cousin. Like, it's interesting because Elizabeth is over here saying, like, there are few people whom I really love and still fewer of whom I think well. But that's not as, I mean, that's kind of true, but like the few people that she thinks well of, like, are morons. Like, well, she thinks well of Jane, which is great, but then she also thinks well of Wickham. So, like, Lizzie, like, close that in even more. Just only think well of Jane. And that's it. Yeah, she's definitely bitter about Charlotte, for sure. You should see ladies ABC always be closing. In a very demure way, of course. Yeah, she does think well of her father. Maybe, does she think well of her father? They're like practical jokers together. But I wonder if she truly actually thinks well of him. Or she just tolerates him. Like, I'd be really curious to get... we haven't gotten that many lines of it necessarily. But I feel like she would probably see, like, her father's kind of still an idiot. But, like, they just have fun together. So she probably thinks her father is less flawed than maybe some of the other girls. I don't know. Honestly, a golden retriever named Bingley is the only name that you should give a golden retriever now. All right, keep reading. To oblige you, I would try to believe almost anything, but no one else could be benefited by such a belief as this. For were I to persuade that Charlotte had any regard for him, I should only think worse of her understanding than I now do of her heart. My dear Jane, Mr. Collins is a conceited, pompous, narrow-minded, silly man. You know he is, as well as I do. And you must feel as well as I do that the woman who marries him cannot have a proper way of thinking. You shall not defend her, though it is Charlotte Lucas. You shall not, for the sake of one individual, change the meaning of principle and integrity, nor endeavor to persuade yourself for me that selfishness is prudence and insensibility of danger, secure for happiness, or security for happiness. I must think your language too strong in speaking of both. Yes, Jane, replied Jane, and I hope you will be convinced of it by seeing them happy together. But enough of this. You alluded to something else. You mentioned 2 instances. I cannot misunderstand you, but I entreat you, dear Lizzie, not to pain me by thinking that person to blame, and saying your opinion of him is sunk. We must not be so ready to fancy ourselves intentionally injured. We must not expect a lively young man to be always so guarded and circumspect. It is very often nothing but our own vanity that deceives us. Women fancy admiration means more than it does. It's very often nothing but our own vanity that deceives us. Man. Wow. That's a good line. Yeah, I honestly, Tharanu, L.A. Thayrenow. I think that's how you say it. I feel like that's kind of true. Like, I feel like she has a partiality to characters that she just names Jane. Honestly, Molly, I feel like that nails it. I feel like she is this way because she has to keep the family together. I feel like Jane has that burden on her all the time. That's a great point. It is an interesting question too. What does she mean by the insensibility of danger? What danger does Elizabeth think Charlotte is in by marrying Collins? I think she probably thinks to me that it's somewhat similar to like what we've talked about before in this, that I think she actually thinks Collins is more of a dangerous person. like a bit more malicious. So maybe she's like nervous for that. Jane has toxic positivity. I don't know if I would say toxic positivity. I think she's just like, yeah, maybe she does a little bit. Like Jane, I wouldn't love getting in a conversation with Jane because she's like, let's just think nicely of everyone. But it's honestly what you need to hear. That's actually a really fascinating point. What would you guys say? Maybe that's the question. We're talking about every character's flaws here. What are Jane's flaws? She's just too optimistic. I don't think danger would be too strong a word. Oh, for bored to death in a loveless marriage. Yeah, maybe not that dangerous. Too trusting because she is innocent. I almost want to go back on that to some extent. I don't necessarily think she's that innocent anymore. Like I was saying that at the beginning. I don't think she's really innocent. I think she's perceived as innocent. Maybe she's innocent in certain ways. She just... like she's a really fascinating character because I was going to say she thinks the best of everyone, but I don't necessarily think that's even the case. Because she doesn't think the best of Wickham. She's like, no, these other people are telling stories. Like, let's try to get at... she's like a researcher. I don't know. Yeah, she's not naive. She's kind and reserved. Relentlessly hopeful. That's good. Yeah, she is a little bit passive, which I don't mind. I feel like the passiveness is probably like the maybe like the Regency society that she's in. She kind of has to be maybe a little passive. Too trusting. Yeah, honestly, that's a good point. She's non-confrontational. She doesn't think bad of Wickham because she likes Darcy. Yeah, fair. Yeah, it's like conflicting in her mind. She like thinks one person is nice, and then the other person comes that says he's not nice, and she's like, no, it doesn't make sense. Everyone's nice. So maybe she is. Yeah, maybe she is a little bit more innocent. I don't know. I still don't think innocent is the right word for it. I think she is, but positive, like too positive. Whatever it is, it's good. I just like Lizzie. Or no, I like Jane. Kind of like Lizzie. Let's keep reading. And men take care that they shouldn't. It is designedly done. They cannot be justified, but I have no idea of there being so much design in the world as some persons imagine. I am far from attributing any of Mr. Bingley's conduct to design, said Elizabeth. But without scheming to do wrong, or to make others unhappy, there may be error, and there may be misery. Thoughtlessness, want of attention to other people's feelings, and want of resolution will do the business. And do you impute it to either of those? Yes, to the last. But if I can go on, I shall displease you by saying what I think of think of persons you esteem. Stop me whilst you can. You persist then in supposing his sisters influence him. Yes, in conjunction with his friend. I cannot believe it. Why should they try to influence him? They can only wish his happiness. That's great. Okay, that line right there helps me understand Jane so much. She only wishes for people's happiness. Is that true? Like, are all of her motivations born out of that statement? They can only wish his happiness. And if he is attached to me, no other woman can secure it. Huh. Hmm. Your first position is false. They may wish many things besides his happiness. They may wish his increase of wealth and consequence. They may wish him to marry a girl who has all the importance of money, great connections, and pride. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking, Isabel. Her flaw is that she believes everybody wants other people's happiness. She's like living in like a land of daisies. That everyone is just good, and maybe to some extent. I gotta think about that more. Beyond a doubt, they do wish him to choose Miss Darcy, replied Jane. But this may be from better feelings than you are supposing. They have known her much longer than they have known me. No wonder if they love her better. But whatever may be their own wishes, it is very unlikely that they should oppose her. They should have opposed their brothers. What sister would think herself at liberty to do it, unless there were something very objectionable? If they believed him attached to me, they would not try to part us. If he were so, they could not succeed. By supposing such an affection, you make everybody acting unnaturally and wrong, and me most happy, and me most unhappy. Do not distress me by the idea. I am not ashamed of having been mistaken, or at least it is slight. It is nothing in comparison of what I should feel in thinking ill of him or his sisters. Let me take him in the best light, and the light in which it may be understood. She's blinded a little bit. Elizabeth could not oppose such a wish, and from this time Mr. Bingley's name was scarcely ever mentioned between them. Now, that is interesting. It's like, she's like, I believe this, let me believe it and cope with it. I almost feel like Jane's saying, this is probably wrong, but this is the only way that I know how to cope with a situation like this. So just let me believe it and stop trying to prove me wrong. And Elizabeth actually honors her in that. Which is an interesting commentary on like how you can talk and communicate with people like this. Sometimes letting them believe I don't know. Do you let them believe in something that's flat out wrong because it's just an easier coping mechanism for the person? I don't know. Yeah, she doesn't believe people can be cruel and petty unless she likes someone and that person says they don't like that person that she likes. Then her worldview is blown away. And she becomes like an investigative journalist. Yeah, she's deluding herself willingly. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good way to say it. Herself to cope. She's like asking Elizabeth to let her live in that. Delusion. Sorry. All right, let's keep reading. Also, everyone like the stream? Like the stream. Poor sweet Jane. Honestly, that is a great point. Like, how did Jane become the way she is? She's almost become the way she is by opposite of her parents. She sees how her parents act and she's like, I don't want to become that. And so she just does the opposite. That is actually a really fascinating question. I'm curious what her offstage feelings were for that. Like, what's behind the scenes on that? That's actually a really fascinating question. I'll do like a little exercise in that. Okay, let's keep reading. Mrs. Bennet still continued to wonder and repine at his returning no more. And though a day seldom passed in which Elizabeth did not account for it clearly, there seemed little chance of her ever considering it with less perplexity. Her daughter endeavored to convince her of what she did not believe herself, that his attentions to Jane had been merely the effect of a common and transient liking, which ceased when he saw her no more. But though the probability of the statement was admitted at some time, she had the same story to repeat every day. Mrs. Bennet's best comfort was that Mr. Bingley must be down again in the summer. Mr. Bennet treated the matter indifferently. "So, Lizzie," he said one day, "your sister is crossed in love, I find. I congratulate her. Next to being married, a girl likes to be crossed in love a little now and then. It is something to think of, and gives her a sort of distinction among her companions. When is your turn to come? You will hardly bear to be long outdone by Jane. Now is your time. Here are officers enough at Meryton to disappoint all the young ladies in the country. Let Wickham be your man. He is a pleasant fellow, and would jilt you creditably." Huh. That's funny. It's almost prophetic. That's really funny. No, I'm not being solemn about this. But I just think that's so funny. Because it's like this is like right there in front of her face, and he's saying this like with like a sarcastic light, but like it's like he's probably speaking what's in the future. And they're actually gonna get jilted. Like she's actually gonna get jilted by Wickham to some extent. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, now Mr. Bennett's gonna judge a character. Just once, accidentally. I feel like this is totally an accidental judge of character. Like he's like saying this with sarcastically, but there's truth in the sarcasm there that he doesn't even know or understand. It is funny too that like literally this sentence, you can tell like who he cares about. He says Mr. Bennet treated the matter differently. So he's thinking about Jane right here. And then the next sentence is, "So Lizzie," he said one day. Like he only wants to talk and chat with Lizzie. "Thank you, sir. But a less agreeable man would satisfy me. We must not all expect Jane's good fortune." "True," said Mr. Bennet, "but it is a comfort to think that whatever of that kind may befall you, you have an affectionate mother who will always make the most of it." Mr. Wickham's society was of material service in dispelling the gloom, which the late perverse occurrences had thrown on many of the Longbourn family. They saw him often. And to his other recommendation was now added that of general unreserve. The whole of what Elizabeth had already heard, his claims on Mr. Darcy and all that he had suffered from, was now openly acknowledged and publicly canvassed. And everybody was pleased to think how much they had always disliked Mr. Darcy before they had known anything of the matter. Wow. So interesting. So the whole town's against Mr. Darcy right now. Mr. Darcy is really up against... maybe there's another reason why I like Mr. Darcy, because he's just like up against the odds. He's like, fighting for something. That's why I like Jane too. She's like up against the odds. So fascinating. Miss Bennet was the only creature who could suppose there might be any extenuating circumstances in the case, unknown to the society of Hertfordshire. Her mild and steady candor always pleaded for allowances and urged the possibility of mistakes. But by everybody else, Mr. Darcy was condemned as the worst of men. Man, this is so fascinating. Darcy versus the world. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I like it. He's not even bothered by it. Like, he's down the neighborhood and he's like, whatever, you can think of whatever you want of me. It reminds me a little bit like I'm really actually curious now. This is a weird foray, but I'm wondering if Harper Lee got inspiration from this novel in any way. A whole town thinking wrong of one person, and all of a sudden that person doesn't care, and then all of a sudden this person comes out and they're good. This is like a common theme in storytelling. This is like Home Alone, all these other stories that you think bad of a person and they end up being okay and good. Yeah, for sure. So he's in London, but it's still interesting to me. Like, I'm sure maybe he's getting news of this or whatever, but he just seems indifferent of it. He like doesn't want to correct people's opinions. Like, even he could have corrected Elizabeth's opinion on himself and on Wickham, and he could have said the whole story and like what they were talking about, but he just doesn't care about that. He's like, you guys can gossip about me however much you want. And I think he knows internally that his character is going to be shown. Maybe, honestly, and I don't know, some of this might just be that he doesn't care about the lesser class. The adorable punk. I just like Darcy, guys. Darcy's my guy. Darcy and Jane, my two faves. They're the best. All right, God, we'll do one more chapter 25. It's not too long. This book just keeps making me want to read, though. This is really fun. Yeah, he is also privileged, so he can just be able to do that. It's very true. Wait, hold on. Fizz Luna, talk to me about that. He wasn't invested in Hertfordshire? Doesn't he have land in Hertford? Wait. I need a map of this. Is there a Pride and Prejudice map? I'm going to look up a Pride and Prejudice map real quick. Because Mr. Collins lives in Hertfordshire. Ooh, there is kind of a map. Oh, no, not really. That doesn't do anything for me. Oh, that kind of does something. So Hertfordshire is far. It's kind of by London. Lucas Lodge, Longbourn. That map doesn't really do much for me anyway. Yeah, but I don't know where anything is because they just talk about the Shire. So Hertfordshire is far away then. Like, I don't know how far all these things are. Derbyshire is up north. This is what I'm going to perpetuate. I'm just going to call England a Pride and Prejudice map for now on. That's going to be my insult to English people. Where are you from? Are you from where Pride and Prejudice? Are you from the Pride and Prejudice area? From the land? Far from, so like where Longbourn is. How far is Hertfordshire from Longbourn? Kent and Hertfordshire are right outside of London. Okay. 2 weeks by carriage. Interesting. Okay. Ooh, you lived, and they go to the Lake District. Mr. Collins lives in Kent, 15-minute walk, 1 mile. Longbourn is in Hertfordshire. Okay. So Hertfordshire is the entire county. Is Hertfordshire in London? Is London in Hertfordshire? Or London is its own county? It's like saying Chicago is in Illinois. Thank you. That helps. All right. I'll figure out the map later. I'll figure out the map of Pride and Prejudice later. I've heard the Lakes District is really beautiful. London was in Middlesex. Okay. Hertfordshire is not a town, but it's a county? No? The dampest? Ooh. I like a good damp lake country, though. All right, chapter 25. After a week spent in professions of love and schemes of felicity, Mr. Collins was called from his amiable Charlotte by the arrival of Saturday. The pain of separation, however, might be alleviated on his side by the preparations for the reception of his bride, as he had reason to hope that shortly after his next return into Hertfordshire, the day would be fixed that was to make him the happiest of men. He took leave of his relations at Longbourn with as much solemnity as before, wished his fair cousin's health and happiness again, and promised their father another letter of thanks. On the following Monday, Mrs. Bennet had the pleasure of receiving her brother and his wife, who came as usual to spend the Christmas at Longbourn. The gardener was a sensible, gentlemanlike man, greatly superior to his sister as well by nature as education. Mr. Gardner. So she used to be Mr. Gardner. Received her brother and his wife. Why? We've met them before, right? I feel like why have I heard the name Mr. Gardner before in this novel? I think it's come up once. Maybe we haven't met them, but did they talk about them at all? I feel like it mentioned them once. I don't know. They were mentioned. They were just mentioned that they're Mr. and Mrs. Bennet's brother. Okay. Jane visits them in London. I don't remember that. So she used to be a Mr. Gardner or Mrs. Gardner or a Miss Gardner. Lady Gardner. Greatly superior to his sister as well by nature as education. Interesting. Okay, so she's better than her sister. The Netherfield ladies would have had difficulty in believing that a man who lived by trade and within view of his own warehouses could have been so well bred and agreeable. Mrs. Gardner, who was several years younger than Mrs. Bennet and Mrs. Phillips, was an amiable, intelligent, elegant woman, and a great favorite with all her Longbourn nieces. Between the two eldest and herself especially, there subsisted a very particular regard. They had frequently been staying with her in town. Now, it's interesting that they're like, that they're so put together. You wonder if not that they're put together for this reason, but like all the girls love them so much. You wonder if the girls are like really longing for parental figures, and these two come along and they're like, oh, please be our mom and dad, because our mom and dad suck. The first part of Mrs. Gardner's business was her arrival. Wait, so where do they live again? Where do they live? Does it say where they live? Oh, they meant the Gardners. Interesting. That's what I was kind of feeling. I feel like so Cheapside in London. Okay, town in London. Cheapside. That's a funny little name for a town. All right. So interesting. Okay, I kind of almost got that feeling because they just were liked. They had frequently been staying with her in town. The first part of Mrs. Gardner's business on her arrival was to distribute her presents and describe the new fashions. When this was done, she had a less active part to play. It became her turn to listen. What a lady. She speaks and then she knows when it's time to listen. Mrs. Bennet does not do that. Mrs. Bennet had many grievances to relate and much to complain of. They had all been very ill-used since she last saw her sister. 2 of her girls had been on the point of marriage, and after all, there was nothing in it. I do not blame Jane, she continued, for Jane would have got Mr. Bingley if she could. But Lizzie, oh sister, it's very hard to think that she might have been Mr. Collins's wife by this time, had it not been for her own perverseness. He made her an offer in this very room, and she refused him. The consequence of it is that Lady Lucas will have a daughter married before I have. It's just a competition for her. He made her offer in this very room. And that the Longbourn estate is just as much entailed as ever. The Lucases are very artful people indeed, sister. They are all for what they can get. I am sorry to say it of them, but so it is. It makes me very nervous and poorly to be thwarted so in my own family, and to have neighbors who think of themselves before anybody else. However, your coming just at this time is the greatest of comforts, and I am very glad to hear what you tell us of long sleeves. She's like, everyone is thinking of themselves. I'm the only one who thinks of other people. Tell me about long sleeves. Yeah, I don't like the slander, but she's the worst. Mrs. Gardiner, to whom the chief of this news had been given before, in the course of Jane and Elizabeth's correspondence with her, made her sister a slight answer, and in compassion to her nieces, turned the conversation. What a good woman. What a mom. She's my favorite. New favorite character. Mrs. Gardiner is lovely. She's so smart. She's the parent that they need. Did you guys call that I was going to like Mrs. Gardiner? Yeah, Mrs. Gardiner is where Jane gets it for sure. She's great. When alone with Elizabeth afterwards, she spoke more on the subject. It seems likely to have been a desirable match for Jane, she said. I am sorry it went off. And she knows Elizabeth needs to talk about this to some extent. Love this. I am sorry it went off, but these things happen so often. A young man such as you describe Mr. Bingley, so easily falls in love with a pretty girl for a few weeks. And when accident separates them, so easily forgets her. That these sort of inconsistencies are very frequent. An excellent consolation in its way, said Elizabeth, but it will not do for us. We do not suffer by accident. It does not often happen that the interference of friends will persuade a young man of independent fortune to think no more of a girl whom he was violently in love with only a few days before. But that expression of violently in love is so hackneyed, so doubtful, so indefinite, that it gives me very little idea. It is as often applied to feelings which arise from half hour's acquaintance as to a real strong attachment. Pray, how violent was Mr. Bingley's love? So this is smart. One of the, I feel like this is the one time we have an adult come in this situation in this book. There is nobody else in this novel right now who is an adult who acts like an adult. The only person that we have who acts like an adult is Jane and Charlotte. Everyone else is a child. Mr. and Mrs. Bennet are a child. The Phillipses are children. Honestly, the Lucases are kind of children too. Finally, we have an adult come in the novel who acts like an adult. They're the only people who are acting like adults here, and they're the only people that are actually helping the girls. You could tell why the girls are so attracted to them. Like they just love the gardeners because the gardeners are the actual parents that they need. And they just thirst. They just are hungry for that. They need that so much. Gardeners, I've got to write this. Gardeners are the parents. Yeah, I will say even Mr. Darcy acts like a child in some ways. I do think that. I still think that, but even though I love Darcy, I think he is a little childish. Meriton as a kindergarten is for sure it. So I was thinking about this before, but I think I know the answer to this one. But even if one of the daughters got married, it would still go to Mr. Collins, correct? Like it just goes to the next in the next male heir of the family. Okay, interesting. That's sad. That's sad. Hey, you can have another male heir. Pop out another kid. A real strong attachment. Pray, how violent was Mr. Bingley's love? I never saw a more promising inclination. He was growing quite inattentive to other people and wholly engrossed by her. Every time they met, it was more decided and remarkable. At his own ball, he offended 2 or 3 young ladies by not asking them to dance. And I spoke to him twice myself without receiving an answer. Could there be finer symptoms? Is not general incivility the very essence of love? What a great line. Is not general incivility the very essence of love? That is so great. Oh, I love that. Oh, yes, that kind of love which I suppose him to have felt. Oh, yes, of that kind of love which I suppose him to have felt. Poor Jane, I am sorry for her. Because with her disposition, she may not get over it immediately. Like, she knows Jane so well. She knows that Jane is just shoving the feelings down. Jane is going, I don't want to feel this. I'm shoving them down so I don't have to feel this. But she's going to take it. She's going to hurt later. And I love that Mrs. Gardiner just immediately. Poor Jane, I'm sorry for her. Because with her disposition, she may not get over it immediately. It had better have happened to you, Lizzie. You would have laughed yourself out of it sooner. I wonder if that's going to be the case with Wickham. I saw Encanto once a long time ago. Yeah. I saw it once a long time ago. It was good. Why? Jane is Louisa. Which one's Louisa? I don't remember the movie that well. I have to rewatch it and then I'll get back to you. Is she the really strong sibling? The really jacked one? Or is she the main character? Louisa is the middle sibling. Yeah, the strong one. That is Jane for sure. It's keeping everything together. Honestly, poor Jane. She's really had to age up faster than everyone else. And it's interesting too, because one of the reasons why I like Jane so much is because she is acting like the only adult here. But it is funny too when you get in dysfunctional families like this, how quickly people do become the adult in the situation. Like the oldest generally becomes like the mother of the family by necessity, and they just become mature very quickly. And it's really interesting that she is actually still so positive about life, because I think she has to do that out of necessity because everyone else is not positive about life. So she's very reactionary. Lizzie, you would have laughed yourself out of it sooner. But do you think she would be prevailed on to go back with us? Change of scene might be of service, and perhaps a little relief from home may be as useful as anything. She knows. She knows. This is crazy how under the radar this is. A little relief from home. The Gardners know that the Bennets are out of their mind. Elizabeth was exceedingly pleased with this proposal and felt persuaded of her sister's ready acquiescence. I hope, added Mrs. Gardner, that no consideration with regard to this young man will influence her. We live in so different a part of town, all our connections are so different, and, as you well know, we go out so little. They're the best! That's my favorite line! That it is very improbable they should meet at all, unless he really comes to see her. And that is quite impossible, for he is now in the custom of his friends, and Mr. Darcy would no more suffer him to call on Jane in such a part of London. My dear aunt, how could you think of it? Mr. Darcy may perhaps have heard of such a place as Gracechurch Street, but he would hardly think a month's ablution enough to cleanse him from its impurities. Where he wants to enter it, and depend upon it, Mr. Bingley never stirs without him. So much the better. I hope they will not meet at all. But does not Jane correspond with the sisters? She will not entirely be able to help calling. She will drop the acquaintance entirely. But in spite of the certainty in which Elizabeth affected to place this point, as well as the still more interesting one of Bingley's being withheld from seeing Jane, she felt a solicitude on the subject which convinced her, on examination, that she did not consider it entirely hopeless. It was possible, and sometimes she thought it was probable, that his affection might be reanimated and the influence of his friends successfully combated by the more natural influence of Jane's attractions. Which, okay, that is actually a really interesting point, because I feel the same too. Like, I think you put Carolyn, you put the worst people in this book in a room, and you put Jane in the room with them. And Jane is going to overpower, with her positivity, any of the negative, awful, terrible people. Put Jane in a room with Mr. Collins, with Carolyn, with her parents, and Bingley and her. And Bingley would not care about any of those other people and would only have eyes for Jane. Because Bingley is a golden retriever, but because Jane is just so bright. Miss Bennet accepted her aunt's invitation with pleasure, and the Bingleys were no otherwise in her thoughts at the time than she hoped that, by Carolyn's not living in the same house with her brother, she might occasionally spend a morning with her, without any danger of seeing him. Aww. The gardener stayed a week at Longbourn, and what with the Phillipses, the Lucases, and the officers, there was not a day without its engagement. Mrs. Bennet had so carefully provided for the entertainment of her brother and sister that they did not once sit down to a family dinner. When the engagement was for home, some of the officers always made part of it. Wait, that's a weird line. Mrs. Bennet had so carefully provided for the entertainment of her brother and sister that they did not once sit down to a family dinner. Mrs. Bennet is... I can't. So there's a line before that you have Mrs. Gardner is like, we don't really go out much. We just kind of want to chill and like enjoy life. And like, we don't really want to have all that much acquaintance. And then all of a sudden you have Mrs. Bennet sitting here going, we're partying with everybody in the town every night. We're going to have people over every single night. There's not going to be a family dinner, which is probably exactly what the Gardners want. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm totally wrong about that. Yeah, they never got a quiet night, and that's probably all they want. Mr. Gardner is a really good brother. They're great. They're the best characters in this novel right now. I say that about every new character. First it was Darcy, now it's Jane, now it's Mr. and Mrs. Gardner. They're my favorites. When the engagement was for home, some of the officers always made part of it, of which officers Mr. Wickham was sure to be one. And on these occasions, Mrs. Gardner, rendered suspiciously by Elizabeth's warm commendation of him, narrowly observed them both, without supposing them, from what she saw, to be very seriously in love. Their preference of each other was plain enough to make her a little uneasy, and she resolved to speak to Elizabeth on the subject before she left Hertfordshire, to represent to her the imprudence of encouraging such an attachment. Let's go! How great are these characters? That makes me so happy. To Mrs. Gardiner, Wickham had one means of affording pleasure, unconnected with his general powers. About 10 or a dozen years ago, before her marriage, she had spent a considerable time in that very part of Derbyshire to which he belonged. They had, therefore, many acquaintances in common, and though Wickham had been little there since the death of Darcy's father 5 years before, it was yet in his power to give her fresher intelligence of her former friends than she had been in the way of procuring. Mrs. Gardiner had seen Pemberley, and known the late Mr. Darcy by character perfectly well. Here, consequently, was an inexhaustible subject of discourse. In comparing her recollections of Pemberley with the minute descriptions which Wickham could give, and bestowing her tribute of praise on the character of its late possessor, she was delighting both him and herself. On being made acquainted with the present Mr. Darcy's treatment of him, she tried to remember something of that gentleman's reputed disposition, when quite a lad, which might agree with it, and was confident at last that she recollected having heard Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy formerly spoken of as a very proud, ill-natured boy. Hold on, interesting. Wait. Let me reread this paragraph. I feel like I missed something. Mrs. Gardiner had seen Pemberley, and had known the late Mr. Darcy by character perfectly well. Here, consequently, was an inexhaustible subject of discourse. In comparing her recollection of Pemberley with the minute description which Wickham could give, and in bestowing her tribute of praise on the character of its late possessor, she was delighting both him and herself. On being made acquainted with the present Mr. Darcy's treatment of him, she tried to remember something of that gentleman's reputed disposition when quite a lad, which might agree with it, and was confident at last that she recollected having heard Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy formerly spoken of as very proud, ill-natured boy. Okay, so this is just gossip. Interesting. How long is the next chapter? I'm going to stop here. Maybe? Do we read one more chapter really fast? Yeah, everything is just gossip. Yeah, listen to the actual elders, not the dumb elders. Listen to the smart elders. But then she's also going back and thinking in her recollection, she's like, I wonder about Darcy. I remember hearing something about his pride. And she kind of like makes a general idea there. I don't know. I like that she's like warning against him though. She had spent considerable time in that very part of Derbyshire to which he belonged. They had therefore many acquaintances in common, and though Wickham had been little... So she's suspicious of Wickham. She's like suspending her judgment of Wickham, but she's suspicious of their affection for each other. And then she remembers hearing gossip about Darcy, and she's like, Darcy might be prideful too. So she's like suspending her judgment on both of these characters, which, can we please have a character suspend their judgment until they actually get to know this person? Finally, a voice of reason. She likes Wickham, but Lizzie can't marry him because they're both poor. partially concerned about a lack of funds. Interesting. This is interesting. I'm like bummed because do I have time to read one more chapter? Do we have time, guys? Should we just speed through one more chapter? Because I feel like this is too much of a cliffhanger to stop here. Thoughts, opinions, feelings. Yeah, the next isn't that long. We could do one more. All right, we'll do one more. It's too good. I can't stop. Let me just change it. 20 to 26. All right, we're going to read one more. I'll try to read this a little quicker maybe. Actually, I always say that, but that never really happens. So, who cares? Chapter 26 is the one that makes you think that Lizzie isn't holding out for love above all. Interesting. I'll keep that in mind. All right. Chapter 26. Mrs. Gardner's caution to Elizabeth was punctually and kindly given on the first favorable opportunity of speaking to her alone. Mrs. Gardner's caution to Elizabeth was punctually and kindly given. Love that. She's giving it punctually and kindly. She's giving it at the right time. She's doing it in a kind way. Mrs. Gardner, just the best. Why is she such a great character? It's finally like the first breath of fresh air that we have. We're like, oh, finally. After honestly telling her what she thought, she thus went on. You are too sensible a girl, Lizzie, to fall in love merely because you are warned against it. And therefore I am not afraid of speaking openly. Okay. Seriously, I would have you be on your guard. Do not involve yourself or endeavor to involve him in an affection which the want of fortune would make so very imprudent. I have nothing to say against him. He is a most interesting young man, and if he had the fortune he ought to have, I should think you could not do better. But as it is, you must not let your fancy run away with you. You have your sense, and we all expect you to use it. Your father would depend on your resolution and good conduct, I am sure. You must not disappoint your father. That's interesting. That's so interesting. So she's essentially like, look, he doesn't have enough money. But then she says, your father would depend on your resolution and good conduct, I am sure. You must not disappoint your father. She's like, your mom is out of her mind. Your dad is checked out, but he has more sense. Don't disappoint your father. Your father really likes you. My dear Anne, this is being serious indeed. Yes, and I hope to engage you to be serious likewise. Let's go. What a great line. She's like, Lizzie, we're talking about something serious here. Buck up. This is a serious conversation. Well then, if you need not be under any alarm, I will take care of myself, and of Mr. Wickham too. He shall not be in love with me if I can prevent it. Elizabeth, you are not serious now. I beg your pardon, I will try again. Is that just a joke that she just said? Well then, you need not be under any alarm. I will take care of myself, and of Mr. Wickham too. He shall not be in love with me if I can prevent it. I think that was just a joke. She's just being a little sarcastic about seriousness. Elizabeth, you are not serious now. Lizzie won't encourage it. Okay. I beg your pardon. Yeah, I feel like there was a little joke there. She's just being flippant about being serious. What a little whippersnapper. Yeah, she's half serious. She's not really like being full serious. I beg your pardon. I will try again. At present, I am not in love with Mr. Wickham. Liar. No, I certainly am not. but he is, beyond all comparison, the most agreeable man I ever saw. And if he becomes really attached to me, I believe it will be better than that he should not. I see the imprudence of it. Oh, I feel like she's saying, she's like, I understand that he doesn't have a money or a fortune. So I almost hope that he doesn't fall in love with me, because if he does fall in love with me and he ends up proposing to me, I love him and I'm not going to be able to say no. Yeah, she doesn't love him for sure. But like, I'm using the love and crush kind of interchangeably here. Fascinating. That's at least my take on her so far. Oh, that abominable Mr. Darcy. My father's opinion of me does me the greatest honor, and I should be miserable to forfeit it. My father, however, is partial to Mr. Wickham. In short, my dear aunt, I should be very sorry to the means of making any of you unhappy, but since we see every day that there is affection, young people are seldom withheld by immediate want of fortune from entering into engagements with each other. How can I promise to be wiser than so many of my fellow creatures if I am tempted? Or how am I even to know that it is to be that it would be wisdom to resist? All that I can promise you, therefore, is not to be in a hurry. I will not be in a hurry to believe myself his first object. When I am in company with him, I will not be wishing. In short, I will do my best. Weird. I think you fall for him if he continues his ascension. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, honestly, Chantwell, her feelings for Darcy are stronger now because her feelings for Wickham. Yeah, for sure. Definitely, like, her feel. She definitely has feelings, but she's like kind of sensible. But at the same time, I don't think she's actually believing, or she's not actually doing what she is saying. She's being a little hypocritical, I think. Yeah, like Elizabeth is saying, I hear you, but I have no promises. That's so fascinating. I really feel like she's like, hey, if this guy were to propose tomorrow, I would be like all in. Perhaps it will be best, and perhaps it will be as well if you discourage his coming here so very often. At least you should not remind your mother of inviting him. As I did the other day, said Elizabeth, with a conscious smile. Very true. It will be wise in me to refrain from that, but I do not imagine that he is always here so often. It is on your account that he has been so frequently invited this week. You know my mother's ideas as to the necessity of constant company for her friends. But really, and upon my honor, I will try to do what I think to be wisest, and now I hope you are satisfied. Her aunt assured her that she was, and Elizabeth, having thanked her for the kindness of her hints, they parted. A wonderful instance of advice being given on such a point without being resented, which feels like a rarity in this. Mr. Collins returned to Hertfordshire soon after had been acquitted by the Gardiners and Jane. But as he took up his abode with the Lucases... Okay, random thought. There seems to be some kind of divine intervention happening here. If Jane wasn't attached to Bingley for a few moments and Collins came around and proposed to Jane probably would have said yes. The opposite of love isn't hate. The opposite of love is Mr. Collins. Because Jane is acting like the family mother, so she would have said it to retain the. She would have hated it. I think she would have hated it, but she probably would have tried to be good about it. But for sure, she would have done that for her family because she's probably, I feel like she's the only one that's like putting family first. Yeah, she would have sacrificed. It would have been a sacrifice for her. Interesting. Thank God that didn't happen. Even though Darcy, or even though Bingley kind of popped into her life and popped out real quick, thank God that happened, because otherwise she'd probably be married to Collins right now. His arrival was no great inconvenience to Mrs. Bennet, being Collins. His marriage was now fast approaching, and he was at length so far resigned as to think it inevitable, and even repeatedly to say in an ill-natured tone that she wished they might be happy. Thursday was to be the wedding day, and on Wednesday Miss Lucas paid her farewell visit. And when she rose to take leave, Elizabeth, ashamed of her mother's ungracious and reluctant good wishes, and sincerely affected herself, accompanied her out of the room. As they went downstairs together, Charlotte said, "I shall depend on hearing from you very often, Eliza." "That you certainly shall. And I have another favor to ask. Will you come and see me? We shall often meet, I hope, in Hertfordshire. I am not likely to leave Kent for some time. Promise me, therefore, to come to Hunsford." Elizabeth could not refuse, though she foresaw little pleasure in the visit. My father and Maria? Who's Maria? Is that her mom? "My father and Maria are to come to me in March." Sister. Oh, younger sister? Oh, cute. Maria. Added Charlotte, "and I hope that you will consent to be of the party. Indeed, Eliza, you will be as welcome to me as either of them." The wedding took place. The bride and bridegroom set off for Kent from the church door, and everybody had as much to say or to hear on the subject as usual. Elizabeth soon heard from her friend, and their correspondence was as regular and frequent as it had ever been. That it should be equally unreserved was impossible. Elizabeth could never address her without feeling that all the comfort of intimacy was over. And, though determined not to slacken as a correspondent, it was for the sake of what had been rather than that was. Charlotte's first letters were received with a good deal of eagerness. There could not be but curiosity to know how she would speak of her new home, and she would like Lady Catherine, or how she would like Lady Catherine, and how happy she would dare pronounce herself to be. Though, when the letters were read, Elizabeth felt that Charlotte expressed herself on every point exactly as she might have foreseen. She wrote cheerfully, seemed surrounded with comforts, and mentioned nothing which she could not praise. The house, furniture, neighborhoods, the roads, were all to her taste, and Lady Catherine's behavior was most friendly and obliging. It was Mr. Collins' picture of Hunsford and Rosings rationally softened. And Elizabeth perceived that she must wait for her own visit there to know the rest. Jane had already written a few lines to her sister to announce their safe arrival in London, and when she wrote again, Elizabeth hoped it would be in her power to say something of the Bingleys. I wish Elizabeth went with Jane and Mrs. Gardiner. Like, Elizabeth needs a break from her parents too. You know? Her impatience for this second letter was well rewarded, as impatience generally is. Jane had been a week in town without either seeing or hearing from Caroline. She accounted for it, however, by supposing that her last letter to her friend from Longbourn had by some accident been lost. Really? No? All right. I feel like she could have done good to get away from her parents. My aunt, she continued, is going tomorrow into that part of the town, and I shall take the opportunity of calling in Grosvenor Street. She wrote again when when the visit was paid, and she had seen Miss Bingley. I did not think Caroline in spirits, were her words, but she was very glad to see me, and reproached me for giving her no notice of my coming to London. I was right, therefore. My last letter had never reached her. I inquired after their brother, of course. He was well, but so much engaged with Mr. Darcy that they scarcely ever saw him. Interesting. I feel like he's almost like holding a grudge, so he doesn't really want to see his sisters, unless Caroline is lying right here. Like he's like, you took me away from Jane. I hate you. Yeah, for sure. Jane thinking that they didn't get the letter, but, they really got the letter. They're just nasty. They scarcely ever saw him. I found that Miss Darcy was expected to dinner. What? Where? She's a liar who lies. Okay, don't trust anything Caroline says. My visit was not long, as Caroline and Mrs. Hurst were going out. I dare say I shall soon see them here. Elizabeth shook her head over this letter. It convinced her that accident only could discover to Mr. Bingley her sister's being in town. 4 weeks passed away, and Jane saw nothing of him. She endeavored to persuade herself that she did not regret it, but she could no longer be blind to Miss Bingley's inattention. After waiting at home every morning for a fortnight and inventing every evening a fresh excuse for her, the visitor did appear at last. But the shortness of her stay, and yet more, the alteration of her manner, would allow Jane to deceive herself no longer. Yes. And that's an interesting word choice. Jane is deceiving herself. I don't think that's innocence. I think she's just deceiving herself. I think that's a better word choice. I feel like Jane just chooses sometimes to live in ignorance. I don't actually think that's, I'm not going to say that's intelligence, but that is intelligent. That you at least have the intelligence to deceive yourself. Mariah, like Mariah Carey. All right, I'll call her Mariah Carey for now on. The letter which she wrote on this occasion to her sister will prove what she felt. A little hot gossip right now. My dearest Lizzie will, I am sure, be incapable of triumphing in her better judgment at my expense when I confess myself to have been entirely deceived in Miss Bingley's regard for me. But, my dear sister, though the event has proved you right, do not think me obstinate if I still assert that, considering what her behavior was, my confidence was as natural as your suspicion. I do not at all comprehend her reason for wishing to be intimate with me. But if the same circumstances were to happen again, I am sure I should be deceived again. Caroline did not return my visit until yesterday, and not a note, not a line did I receive in the meantime. When she did come, it was very evident that she had no pleasure in it. She made a slight formal apology for not calling before, said not a word of wishing to see me again, and was in every respect so altered a creature that when she went away, I was perfectly resolved to continue the acquaintance no longer. I pity, though I cannot help blaming her. She was very wrong in singling me out as she did. I can safely say that every advance to intimacy began on her side. But I pity her, because she must feel that she has been acting wrong, because I am very sure that anxiety for her brother is the cause of it. Come on. I need not explain myself farther. And though we know this anxiety to be quite needless, yet if she feels it, it will easily account for her behavior to me. And so deservedly dear as he is to his sister, whatever anxiety she may feel on his behalf is natural and amiable. I cannot but wonder, however, at her having any such fears now, because if he had all cared about me, we must have met long ago. But he knows of my being in town, I am certain, from something she said herself. Don't believe her. And yet it should seem by her manner of talking as if she wanted to persuade herself that he is really partial to Miss Darcy. I cannot understand it. If I were not afraid of judging harshly, I should almost be tempted to say that there's a strong appearance of duplicity in all this. But I will endeavor to banish every painful thought and think only of what will make me happy. Your affection. And the invariable kindness of my dear aunt and uncle. Let me hear from you very soon. Miss Bingley said something of his never returning to Netherfield again, or giving up the house, but not with any certainty. We had better not mention it. I am extremely glad that you have such pleasant accounts from our friends at Hunsford. Pray go to see them. Sir William and Maria. I am sure you will be very comfortable there. Extremely glad you have such pleasant accounts. Oh. So she's going to go up to see them. I thought Hunsford is close to London. They're going up to Hunsford. Kristen, you got to read it. It's so good. Yeah, read it. Catch up to me. I'm on chapter 27. Probably won't read until like early next week. But read the entire thing. It's like halfway through the book. And then catch up to us. You got it. Yeah, you guys are definitely not a unbiased audience, but ooh, Northanger Abbey. Never read that one. We'll add that one to the list. All right, let's finish this. Let's finish this little juicy bit. This letter gave Elizabeth some pain, but her spirits returned as she considered that Jane would no longer be duped by the sister, at least. All expectation from the brother was now absolutely over. Now, hold on. We got that Jane says that she thinks Mr. Bingley knows that she's there, but we don't get the actual thing that they said. I want to know what Carolyn said so that we can disprove it. You know what I mean? Jane, for the love of God. Come on. They're awful. Carolyn's terrible. All expectation from the brother was now absolutely over. She would not even wish for any renewal of his attentions. His character sunk on every review of it, and then as a punishment for him, as well as a possible advantage to Jane, she seriously hoped that he might really soon marry Mr. Darcy's sister, as, by Wickham's account, she would make him abundantly regret what he had thrown away. Wow. Mrs. Gardiner about this time reminded Elizabeth of her promise concerning that gentleman. Required information. Love that. And Elizabeth had such to send as might rather give contentment to her aunt than to herself. His apparent partiality had subsided. His attentions were over. What? He was the admirer of someone else. Why did that happen so quickly? I want all the juicy gossip of that. I want to get every day and every detail on that. Her heart had been slight. Wait. Elizabeth was watchful enough to see it all, but she could see it and write it off without material pain. Her heart had been slightly touched, and her vanity was satisfied with believing that she would have been his only choice had fortune permitted it. The sudden acquisition of £10,000 was the most remarkable charm of the young lady, to whom he was now rendering himself agreeable. But Elizabeth, less clear-sighted perhaps in his case than in Charlotte's, did not quarrel with him for his wish of independence. Nothing, on the contrary, could be more natural. And while able to suppose that it cost him a few struggles to relinquish her, she was ready to allow it a wise and desirable measure for both, and could very sincerely wish him happy. Lizzie, I like that you're mature there. Huh? Yeah, exactly. He's like, oh, there's a richer girl over there. Later, Lizzie. All this was acknowledged to Mrs. Gardiner, and after relating the circumstances, she thus went on. I am now convinced, my dear aunt, that I have never been much in love. For had I really experienced that pure and elevating passion, I should at present detest his very name, and wish him all manner of evil. Whoa! That's wise, but my feelings are not only cordial toward him, they are even impartial toward Miss King. Is that his new love? I cannot find out what I hate about her, or I cannot find out that I hate her at all, or that I am in the least unwilling to think her a very good sort of girl. There can be no love in all this. My watchfulness has been effectual, and though I should certainly be a more interesting object to all my acquaintance, were I distractedly in love with him, I cannot say that I regret any comparative insignificance. Importance may sometimes be purchased too dearly. Kitty and Lydia take his defection much more to heart than I do. They are young in the ways of this world, and not yet open to the mortifying conviction that handsome young men have something to live on, as well as the plain. Wow, okay, that doesn't come out of nowhere, but that still does come out of nowhere. That's a Yeah, Elizabeth, I'm not jealous, so I guess I never really liked him. I don't really agree with her logic here, but part of it is kind of true. There's a point too where I'm thinking, okay, hold on. I need to gather my thoughts on this. This is crazy to me. So, at first, I'm wanting to get all the details of this. I want to know, like, when this happened and, like, what was really going on in this. But I think it's actually really well written now that I'm thinking about it, that we just get this in, like, a little letter. Because this is probably exactly how it happened for Lizzie. Like, he just kind of drew away, and then all of a sudden he's gone. Just like we get in this novel. Like, all of a sudden, he's just not there anymore. And so we're kind of shocked in the same way that Elizabeth is probably shocked. Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, it is the no good, very bad winter for everyone. That's actually a great title for a video. Everyone is struggling this winter. What a crap winter everyone's having. Ah, man, I really want to keep reading, but I don't have time. Ah, I don't know what the heck to think or feel. That's crazy to me. Man. She was flattered by his attention and got caught up in it, but when she loses his attention, she isn't affected. Man, so fascinating. Man, I have so many thoughts. I feel like I need to go on another walk to just think about all this kind of stuff. Crazy to me. That's actually crazy. This is way more fun than work. This is great. It's a good point to pause. All right, perfect. Oh, man. Okay, lots of thoughts on this. I'm going to publish some videos in the next few days. I still have some videos that we did the last one. But next live read will probably be Monday. I don't think I can do it Friday. I don't think I can't do tomorrow. Can't do Saturday. Can't do Sunday because we got a Lord of the Rings reading on Sunday. But Monday morningish, afternoonish, I'll probably do it. So I just want to keep reading. I'm like really into this right now. I want to keep reading this. But we can't. I have to read it with you guys. We got to discuss and talk about it. That's what this book club is for. Okay, so I'll see you guys Monday. More videos to come in the meantime. I love these libraries because you guys help me understand certain things, and I love the little debates that happen. This is so fun. Man, this is great, guys. All right, everyone. I'll see you guys. Oh, yeah, finish Northanger Abbey and then catch up to us. Finish it this weekend and then catch up to us by Monday so you can join in. That'd be great. Maybe we'll do Northanger Abbey soon, too. We'll add that to the list. This is why guys look at girls and say, how do you know all this? This is how girls think. Honestly, it's a valid point. All right, guys, have a good one. I will see you guys soon. This is really fun. And enjoy your weekend. Have a good weekend, guys. Yeah, we'll do Persuasion. We'll do all of that. Don't worry. We're getting to all of Dickens and all of Jane Austen. We're getting to all of it eventually. I can't wait. It's gonna be exciting. Wow. All right, guys. This is more appropriate than ever, but this is the best way to sign off.
I'm 27 years old. I've no
Yeah, we'll do the
money
painted
and no
veil, too.
prospects. I'm already a burden to my parents.
All
And
right,
I'm
guys.
frightened.
We'll see you later.